Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Charter Township of Comstock Parks and Recreation special meeting for Wednesday, July 1st, 2026 at 6 p.m. Initially, we have public comment, and I would like to let you know that there are some rules for commenting. A citizen may state his or her name and address and may speak only one time for no more than 3 minutes. This time may not be given to another citizen to extend their time. During this time, you will be making statements to the board without discussion from the board members, but you are welcome to make an appointment with the commission secretary or the parks director to discuss your comments further, and their contact information is located by the door. So with that, are there any public comments? Okay. Hearing none. Going on to business, which is park staff and park safety incidents, I'd like to preface this discussion first with a quick reading of the Robert Morris Park ordinances. Ordinance number 438, effective May 1st, 2009. An ordinance to establish rules and regulations for the use and maintenance of Robert Morris Park for the protection of the health, safety, and welfare of the community and the members of the public utilizing such facility, and to provide sanctions for the violations thereof. The ordinance shall be known and cited as the Robert Morris Park Regulation Ordinance. It's number 540. The limitation upon users. Robert Morris Park shall be open to the general public, subject to the condition and terms set forth in this ordinance. Under park permits, any person desiring admission to or use of Robert Morris Park shall first obtain a park permit issued pursuant to this ordinance. Permit fees, both annual and daily, shall be established by the Park and Recreation Commission and may be amended from time to time thereafter by the Park and Recreation Commission as it deems appropriate. All annual permits issued shall be for the calendar year during which the permit is issued, and no person to whom a park permit has been issued shall loan or transfer the permit to any other person for use in obtaining admission to the park. An individual's privilege under a park permit to come onto and use the park may be suspended by the Park and Recreation Director for a violation of the terms of this ordinance or any rules or regulations adopted thereunder and posted on the park premises. The Parks and Recreation Commission has the right to revoke an individual park permit upon notice to the permit holder and a hearing. The extent of the suspension or revocation shall be based upon the nature of the violation or violations, the frequency thereof, and any prior warning given or disciplinary actions taken against the party involved. An individual whose park privileges under a park permit have been suspended or revoked pursuant to this section shall not come onto the park premises during the period of his or her suspension or revocation. Alcoholic beverages and controlled substances. Section 4, 91.004. Smoking, vaping, tobacco products, controlled substances, marijuana, and alcohol are prohibited. No person shall be in the park while under the influence of intoxicating liquors and/or a controlled substance. 91.005, tents and house trailers. No camping tents, travel trailers, tent trailers, or house trailers shall be erected or located within Robert Morris Park without a permit from the Parks and Recreation Director or Commission. Section 91.006, motor vehicles. Motor vehicles, including motorcycles, shall be driven only on designated roadways and at speeds of not more than 10 miles per hour. Motor vehicles shall be only parked in the designated parking areas within the park. Washing, polishing, or repairing of motor vehicles within the park is prohibited. 91.007, use of facilities. Charcoal grills and picnic tables should not be used or held for a longer time than necessary to permit their use by a maximum number of people. These are first come, first served unless reserved. Any fires for cooking must be made within the grills provided. No fires shall be built directly upon the ground. Hot coals should be disposed of properly in receptacles provided. No person shall dispose of refuse, trash, or debris anywhere on the park premises except within containers provided for that purpose. No person shall damage, destroy, or deface township property in the park. The launching, beaching, or docking of boats, kayaks, paddleboards, navigational devices, or any other type of recreational watercraft from or within the park is prohibited without prior written approval. No person shall bring a dog or other animal pet onto the park premises. This prohibition shall not apply to a dog that is used as a guide or leader dog for a person who is blind or visually impaired, a hearing dog for a person who is deaf or audibly impaired, or a service dog for a person with physical limitations. Clothing, including bathing suits, shall not be changed within the private motor vehicles within the park. No person under 12 years of age shall be permitted within the park unless under the control and supervision of a person at least 18 years of age. The use of profane or obscene language in the park is prohibited. All persons within the park shall conduct themselves in an orderly manner consistent with all posted rules and regulations adopted by the Township Park and Recreation Commission. The playing of any radio, loudspeaker, public address system, or other electronic or mechanical sound-producing device, including any musical instrument, with such volume as to unreasonably upset or disturb the quiet, comfort, or repose of other persons in the park is prohibited without a permit from the Parks and Recreation Director or Commission. No person shall have in their possession or control any slingshot, bow and arrow, BB gun, paintball gun, fireworks, or explosives within any township park without prior approval. Bow and arrow will be allowed only for a Parks and Recreation sponsored archery program. No person shall discharge any rifle, shotgun, pellet gun, rifle, or air rifle, pistol, or other firearm in any Comstock Township managed park for any reason, provided that this rule shall not apply to any law enforcement officer acting in the course of his or her employment. Violations or criminal offenses involving transportation, possession, brandishing of or discharge of pistols or other firearms, ammunition, or components of firearms on park property shall be prosecuted in accordance with the local ordinance and state law. Hours of operation, section 91.008. Robert Morris Park shall be open to the public daily from 9 a.m. until sunset. The Township and Recreation Director or Commission shall have the authority to close the park on specific days or hours of a day for purposes of maintenance or such other reason the Director or Commission deems appropriate. No unauthorized person shall be in the park when it is closed. Hours may vary for a special event. Special events must be approved by the Parks and Recreation Director. 91.009 Park Commission. The Township Park and Recreation Commission shall have the authority to impose additional rules and regulations upon the use and management of Robert Morris Park, not inconsistent with the provisions contained in the within the ordinance, and which are designed to protect the health, safety, and welfare of those persons using the park facilities. Any such additional rules and regulations shall be appropriately posted within the park for the information of those affected by the same. 91.010 Liability. Any person using the Robert Morris Park facility shall assume the risk of any injury, damage, or loss suffered or incurred while within the park. The holder of a park permit shall be liable to the Charter Township of Comstock and to all others lawfully using the park facilities for any loss, injury, or damages caused by such permit holder, or from the negligence or willful or wanton act of such a permit holder. 91.011 Sanctions. Any person, firm, or corporation that violates any of the provisions of this ordinance shall be deemed to be responsible for a municipal civil infraction as defined by the Michigan statute and shall be subject to a civil fine of not more than $500, along with costs which may include all expenses, direct and indirect, to which the Charter Township of Comstock has been put in connection with municipal civil infraction. In no case, however, shall costs be less than $9, no more than $500 be ordered. A violator of this ordinance shall also be subject to such additional sanctions and judicial orders as are authorized under Michigan law. Additionally, any person, firm, or corporation violating any of the provisions of this ordinance or any of the rules or regulations of the Park and Recreation Commission may also have his or her park permit revoked or suspended for such a period of time as the Park and Recreation Commission may consider appropriate in accordance with the standards referred to in the section 3E. This ordinance took effect May 1st, 2009. So that's the general reading for Robert Morris Park. There is slight variations in the ordinances that apply to the other parks in Comstock Township. So with that, that brings us to discussion of incidents.
Hopefully I've been able to update the park board on the recent things that have happened in the last 2 to 3 weeks. At this time, I'd like Dakota to come up and explain a little bit further on some of the things that he's had to deal with.
Alrighty, so since, already.
Please state your name.
Yes, my name is Dakota. I'm the Ordinance Enforcement Officer for Comstock Township.
Okay.
So since the 8th, I have been dealing with issues in the parks. The first one was Celery Park. We had somebody who was sleeping out there and deciding to change into a bunny suit out in public and try to interact with kids out there. County dealt with them a little bit, and then I also had to deal with that person as well. Outside of that, I have 20 for Robert Morris Park between the 11th and just the other day. And the rest of my complaints have been spread out between Merrill Park and both Celery Park. But they've included everything from smoking to drinking, people being drunk, people wanting to pick fights at the parks. That's just been kind of the way that things have been going. We also had to trespass both one person and one vehicle back on the 11th and the 15th, I want to say, that we had to do that, which is not related to the disc golf league. No tickets have been written for anybody. Just want to say that right now. There's been no tickets written. That's kind of what we've been dealing with. It's been a little crazy. The last complaint that I had to deal with, it was something super simple. People were smoking weed. They said that they knew they couldn't smoke it, but they also didn't know that they couldn't smoke it. So I just reiterated to them that can't be smoking weed here. When I talked to the staff member who brought it towards us, just telling them what I told them, they told me that because of what happened over the weekend, they did not feel comfortable making contact with anybody. It has been pretty exciting with threats even leading up before the disc golf league. Just having staff being threatened to be shot prior to the golf league was kind of a lot, and that's what kind of brought me up there right away to start dealing with things. So it's just these constant threats that were happening.
If I could ask, what is the process, or it's a combination of you working with the township and the parks, right? So how are you brought to something that's going on, alteration, for example? How is that process? Take us through that.
It has been everything from somebody calling Katie and Katie telling me something's going on up at the parks, to there's an app that they use that I'm part of, that they put things in the app, and then if I see it in time, I go to it. If not, Katie calls me and I go deal with it.
I apologize. When you say app? Like social media or?
No,
We
it's-
have a app called When I Work, so it helps with the schedule. They clock in, clock out of it, and then there's a messaging
Gotcha. Okay.
piece to that, and that's how we
Yeah.
mostly kind of communicate, especially things like this.
So initially, the people that are interacting with someone that's doing something wrong, they are witnessed by an employee, right? Or is it another park visitor, or how does that happen?
It really all depends. Sometimes it's the staff member sees the issue and they try to address it with them. In the past, it has gone well most of the time. They tell them, hey, don't do such and such, and they don't. Other times, like I've received a couple phone calls leading up to me going out there on a Thursday. Just people come complaining about Robert Morris, about beer cans being left out and about, and the loud music down at the beach. Fishermen fishing near the beach, which we have nothing on that. It really varies. It really depends on what the complaint is.
Okay, thank you.
Dakota, when you use the phrase trespassing someone, you can or you can't trespass them. Can you explain a little bit
Yes.
what that terminology actually means?
Yeah, so under our township ordinance, I can trespass vehicles without a problem, as long as it,
Charge them with trespassing or?
yes. So under that ordinance, I can, which we do. They first get that general warning, so they get that warning from me in the mail saying, for this vehicle that was out of Ashtemo, that your vehicle is not allowed back at our parks for 1 year. And I list the date of their return, and if they decide to come back under the ordinance that is listed, they can be charged with a civil infraction up to $500, plus a, I'm trying to remember the wording I used, a misdemeanor infraction in pursuant to the MCL that I also listed. Under different ordinances, the Parks Department can choose to trespass somebody or have them removed. This particular one was a former employee, and it was at the legal advice of our attorney to do so.
And so your process for enforcement, as you're describing, you provide a violation depending on what level of interaction this is.
Yes.
And then from there, at what point is it that you are required to call the sheriff or?
If they don't want to comply in any way, shape, or form.
And is there like a percentage of where you're running into that, hey, I've asked you twice now, you guys need to move along, or how does that work?
I have not had that issue yet. At the end of the day, if they choose not to listen to me, I can still get their license plate, and then I can issue not trespass warning. And then, like with this one vehicle, I sent the vehicle information to county sheriff, so they're aware that this vehicle has been trespassed under our ordinance. I cited the trespassing ordinance, and then they log that, so they can keep track of that. Whether that means anything, that's anybody's guess.
And how are you documenting as each occurrence?
I use so all of my interactions are recorded on my body cam. So every small little thing I do is recorded. It even records my footsteps, so it'll show you what paths that I walk or don't walk. I record it on a spreadsheet as well. We were using BSA for a while, but that has been very iffy with it wanting to save reports. But between my body cam and just small little snippet notes I leave on my spreadsheet, that's usually how I record these things. Most of the warnings I give, people usually follow. I don't have any big problems with it. It's just getting past that hurdle of the immediate issue that is happening.
And you're also doing this for the township as well, so it's not just parks, but
Correct.
if you get
It
a
is
call for
all over.
a junker left out or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep, the parks fall in the township.
Yeah.
Yep. For example, I did 32 calling cases, because that's how I've done everything. It's the first big month of me being at the parks having to do this. So 32 of my cases out of my 61 cases first month were for the parks. Everything else was for the general township.
Is this number 61 altogether?
Yeah, so that's all that I've done for all of June throughout this
all.
whole entire township.
Is this a large number relative to?
Yes, this is
like
very
last
large.
year, or?
Last year's a stretch. So last year, these numbers are slightly off because I was not expecting that. So last year, I believe, prior to me showing up, they were on track to meet like 180 cases for the year. I did 350-something cases. I think I'm over already 200. I think I'm pushing 300 already for the month of June. So it's really hard to say what it looks like for last year because I took over midway in July, so.
So generally increasing.
Correct. Compared to last month, this is busy. Last month, I think I did mid-30s. So this was a pretty busy month for me.
And just from your perception in speaking to various people that you've had to speak to and warn, is there a sense that there's knowledge about what the rules are, or are they just not aware of them, or?
Depends. So a specific group told me it's a constitutionally protected right to drink beer in public. So that wasn't a fun argument to have. It really all depends who I talk to. Most of the time it's cool. I had 2 Thursdays in a row that they decided not to be cool about it. But usually it's, hey, you can't do this, and they're usually cool with it. Some of them question like, well, why can't I smoke weed here? Weed's legal. It's like, yeah, but it's not. Both our ordinance and state law says you can't. And we can usually get past that. I haven't kicked anybody out of the park for smoking weed, even though we could. It's just don't do it again. Same thing with drinking beer. Like if it's in a small koozie, and it's really hard for me to tell what it is, I usually leave it be. A reasonable person would assume that it is alcohol. I'm not gonna get into that. But when I see you crack open a big old natty ice right in front of me, like you need to dump that out, or you can just leave. I try not to write tickets because as cool as it sounds, it's a lot of work on my hands. It's not fun. You got push hard to make 9 copies for my single tickets.
So do you feel that people are aware of rules posted, or are they just not going over to the building, or they're just not?
So like
don't care.
as you drive past the front gate, it says the first time that park closes at 9 p.m. When you get to the gatehouse, we have a breakdown of the rules, plus another sign that says no smoking, tobacco, or marijuana. I believe also says no drinking.
Not that sign.
Not that sign, okay. And it says on the clubhouse right there, or the guard shack, the park closes at 9 p.m. One of the groups on Thursday that I talked to, he said he didn't know that he couldn't smoke cigarettes. I said, well, it says so on the sign as you come in. He said that I was lying, so I walked him over and showed him. It says right here, as you walk in, no smoking tobacco. And he says, oh, I didn't see that. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how it goes. We can have all the signs in the world, just people don't want to look at the signs. That's kind of how things are. They say they didn't know about it, but it's like we got all these signs posted all over. It's, as you come on in, they're online. The onus is on you to go look at them. We've done our part by making them public.
Okay, thank you.
Do you feel you're given the authority to move your agenda forward as if you have someone that's been drinking, to make them leave, or to pour out? I mean, it feels like there's tension in that situation when you're having to confront.
Yes, so they have choices. Drinking beer is not allowed, so I can either write them a ticket for that, or they can pour it out and keep doing what they're doing. They have 2 options. They can be adult about it and either just pour it out, or we can write a ticket, and if they still want to cause issues after that, I can bring county sheriff here and we can go a whole different route. Not only will I also write you a ticket, but he also might write you a misdemeanor ticket for open container in public. So they're given options. For most of them that was drinking, it was super simple. Like, they stumped it out and we were fine. Just one that said that it was his constitutional protected right. I informed him that if he doesn't pour it out, these are the options that we have, and it's going to be up to him to decide how he wants to go forward.
Do you feel our ordinances covers you legally so that you can execute what you need to do?
Yep.
Because I mean, in some of my, just rereading in some of these things, according to some of the infractions we're seeing, there seems to be potentially some gaps where there may be some additional verbiage that would kind of help clarify.
So between the park ordinances and the standard general ordinances
Yeah.
for the township, I'm fairly covered as much as we
Okay.
can. I know that the homeless committee is also working on one that will also help out, so like gaps are trying to be filled. Well, whatever gaps do exist, we are in the process of filling them, but the issues I've ran into so far, I can cover. Again, at the end of the day, I can't physically make anybody do anything, so that's where I rely on county sheriff to help me out with that.
And you've only contacted the sheriff on a few occasions?
For the parks,
Yeah.
not this month. For the one in Celery, somebody else contacted them, and we wound up meeting up without us knowing that we were both meeting up.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, so far this month, outside of Celery Park, which was, I didn't know that they got called out. I do take that back. We had that one in Merrill. So we did have an incident in Merrill. This stems back to last year. We have a homeless individual who does not like me, so much so that he told our supervisor that he's going to camp outside on our front steps until I show up so he can stab me. Very nice guy. He knows me very well. He's just mad I won't let him cook his drugs out at the parks. But last year he was in the water with his knife threatening to stab me and Richard because we took his wakeboard, even though his wakeboard was still in the water with him. So that was weird. We thought county sheriff trespassed him for breaking multiple ordinances and state law. That did not happen. The first time in Robert Morris last week, a park staff member called Katie, or contacted Katie, who then contacted me saying that there was somebody in the park with an axe. So I called the staff member to see what was going on.
Not to cut you off, but this was at Merrill, not at Robert Morris.
Merrill, yep, at Merrill. So I called the staff member and said, like, what's going on? Because prior in that day, I had another issue with somebody doing things at Merrill. Turns out to be at the bus stop. So I said, what's really going on here? He said that he thought he saw somebody with an axe being aggressive with a lady. And I said, okay, did you call the county sheriff? He said, no. And I said, can you call county sheriff? He felt uncomfortable, so I said, I'd call him. So I called them. They really didn't take the report seriously because I was now a third-party caller, and they didn't know if they'd be able to get to it. So I said, fine. I wound up coming in to go see what exactly was going on, and I found Nick in the park. So I immediately turned around and left and came here and called county back and said, hey, it's Nick, he can't be here. And I got told that county made contact with him, told him that he could be there. And I said, nope, he's been trespassed from here. Why is he still here? Like, we just had him trespassed last week from county property for wanting to stab me. So county showed up. Our supervisor also showed up to watch the whole thing unfold, which was great, because I feel like a broken record sometimes when I say that I don't get a whole lot of support from county sheriff, and people just look at me funny. So he was able to witness firsthand that county didn't really do anything. Nick finally left on his own accord. Ben talked to the county sheriff officer, and she said that he was never trespassed, even though the first officer last week who took the report for wanting to stab me said he was. And she said all he did was just ask him to move along, and he chose to on his own to move along. So like that's something that was going on. Nick does carry like a 6-inch knife on him. He sometimes he's fine, other times he can be a bit much. Like last summer, wanting to have an episode in the water, or just wanting to come now stab me. So we thought he was trespassed. I probably called county on him a dozen times in the last year to trespass him for many things. So yeah, I thought he was trespassed. The vehicle, I believe we have trespassing. County has the information, but that's anybody's guess if that's actually a thing or not. So that was at Merrill Park. So yes, I did contact county on that one. No good came of it.
So Dakota, at that point, he did, in fact, have an axe with him in the park.
He had a knife.
He had a knife?
Yes, I didn't see
Okay.
an axe. Not calling a staff member a liar.
Okay.
I have seen his camp before. It wouldn't surprise me if he had an axe. When I found him, he was asleep underneath a tree with a bunch of bags around him. So it's possible. It's not out of the norm for him. I've seen him. So he always has his 6-inch knife with him. He brags about it. But I've seen him have an axe. He's had a machete. He's had a chainsaw chain that he was trying to weld into a sword. Not going well. I've seen him with many things, so it wasn't out of the norm. It's really hard to mistake an axe for a knife.
I mean, is that considered brandishing a weapon, or?
Our ordinance doesn't call out bladed weapons.
No, it doesn't call out bladed weapons.
It sounds like a common thing that we would understand is
Yes.
probably not safe for anyone to have. But we don't
Right.
call out axes, we don't
Nope.
call out knives, we don't call it bladed
No,
weapons.
but as far as like lawful goes, it's weird. It's all broken down to purpose.
Yeah, intention.
Yeah, right.
But that's also perception.
Right.
Yeah.
And like,
But if the individual has previously made physical threats.
yep.
I would think,
One would think.
you would construe that he was not there with a knife to clean his fish or something. He was more likely,
So we think that there was a group that was handing out food to the homeless, and that's why they were there.
That's another discussion, I
That's,
think, too.
yes, but, like, again, there's some homeless here that I know carry axes, and that's normal for them, because it's a tool, it's what they use to chop wood and live. I don't consider that a weapon or a threat against me. When Nick has his knife out and is yelling, "I hate you," whatever, that's more or less a,
He's arriving by foot or by bicycle, or how is he getting into the place?
depends, he can walk, he steals bikes. The first time I met him, he had 40 bikes just to the west of South Winkie that he stole to refurbish to give back to kids in need. He couch surfers at a house on Henning. I've seen him driving every so often. It really just depends on what his mood is.
Okay.
But he does like to hang out at Merrill. That is a go-to for him.
is it typically in the evening, or can it be any time throughout the day?
Anytime.
Anytime throughout the day?
Usually at night, like when it's really dark, he goes back to the area just to the west of South Winkie, and that's where he likes to do his cooking with a guy named Bundy, Keith Smith. That's where he likes to go do it. But when they're done doing their stuff over there, it's wherever they want to go.
And there's nothing the sheriff's department can do about,
Oh, they can.
but,
That's not the problem. It's getting them to do something is the problem.
okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Katie, did you have anything else for Dakota, or?
No, not necessarily anything for Dakota at this time.
Okay, all right.
Can someone take me through these threats of
Thank you.
shootings? Where is that coming from? Is that,
Sure. So one of the things that I had given you all is like an outline of the incident, so that's kind of what I'm looking at first. So there are 7. I might have left off the 7th one on a copy that I originally provided, or I think there were 2. So the one with 7 is the correct one. So the first one I have is that there was reported to me, I think just last week, that there was a shooting, or not, there wasn't a shooting. There was a threat that somebody was going to shoot one of our workers as they were driving through the guard shack at Robert Morris. It sounded like it, it didn't sound like it. It happened over a 2-day period where the first day somebody came in and the same person was working the guard shack both of these days. So the person came in, I believe, there was 2 people in the car, but the first kind of offense was just making fun of our staff member, just kind of harassing him, bullying him, that sort of thing. But then the very next day the car came back, and this time it was just, still increasingly bullying, harassing our staff member, but the car, paid their $5 and went on in for that day. Later that day, the car was driving away and asked if they were able to come back without paying again, and the rule is that it is a day pass, so yes, they are able to come back without paying again.
On the same day?
On the same day, yes, on the same day. In the incident report, the staff member is claiming that, for the next 30 minutes, he was very anxious because he didn't know, what was going to happen.
Yeah.
When the car came back, the two individuals in the car, the car approached the guard shack again, stopped like they're supposed to, and said something, to the effect of, "Are we good?" And the park attendant said yes, and the car had said, something to the effect of, "Good, otherwise I was going to blow your head off." And then the car just drove on in and left the, then just left the guard attendant kind of standing there shocked. So that was that first one that I had listed.
Did you get the license plate number on, or did we have that from the pass information?
Unfortunately not with a day pass. There's no information that we take like that. It's just having the payment transaction. I did not find out about this. So this happened on June 13th and 14th, I believe, and I didn't find out about this until a couple of days ago.
This incident 1.
As for incident 1, yes.
Right, Katie, you said he verbally began abusing the staff person, but do you know over what? Was it the fact that he had to stop at the guard shack and buy a permit or show a permit, or was he just angry that?
I don't think from the incident report and talking to the staff member about the incident, it wasn't, the person wasn't angry about having to pay. They were just literally picking on him for,
Just bullying.
the way he looks.
Okay.
And just kind of it'd be like your high school nothingness. Like, it really does not have anything to do with anything. I think just like a sense of maybe, well, I don't want to say what I think, but it was just commenting on his looks.
Right, okay, so it had nothing to do with,
Nope, it didn't sound like it had nothing to do with, I don't want to pay, why do I have to pay, anything like that. It was just
didn't
a
like
person interaction, I
look at
guess.
him or
Sure.
something, okay.
Do you have any questions on that one?
So have they been back since, or?
Not that I'm aware of. This person has not seen them come back since, but we also don't have necessarily a record of,
Right. And it could be a different staff person who's there when they do
Sure,
return or whatever.
sure.
So
Or
it's
is that-
unknown whether they're,
Sure, or are they driving a different car that day, all those kinds of things. Nothing else has happened that I'm aware of from this situation.
but that was one of the first very unsettling things.
I think so. To be honest, the timeline the last 2 weeks, I'm not really sure what I've heard in what order,
Okay.
or experienced, I should say.
Okay.
The second one was actually, I was actually at the park one morning, just, going about your daily, I was just working at the park with another park member. And I was I think I was in the parking lot cleaning up, maybe.
This is Robert Morris.
Oh, sorry, we're still at Robert Morris. That first one also happened at Robert Morris. So at the park, the person at the guard shack had told me that somebody had just left angry that somebody was fishing where they weren't supposed to be. So I had gone up there and kind of talked to her, a newer staff member, so just kind of talking through the scenario, what happened, making sure that she was okay, that, she said, he was just upset that he was fishing there, and then drove away. But then later, when I'm back down in the parking lot, a gentleman kind of come up to me and said that he just started talking about general like park rules, and then he had asked me, he told me that the guy who was doing something, that he told him that if they didn't fish somewhere else, that he was going to shoot them.
This would be incident number 2, right?
This is incident number 2. And with that one,
One patron talking to another patron who's in the park.
Correct.
And the person who was fishing had a right to be there, correct?
Yes, yeah.
We do allow that.
Yes,
So there
yes.
was no reason why this
Yep.
person couldn't be fishing.
Correct.
But someone else who was a visitor to the park didn't want them to be fishing there. Do you know why, or what?
I I do not know why. It sounds like, I just don't want to call somebody out for something, but the one person was metal detecting in the water, and it sounded like he didn't like that while he was metal detecting that the other group was fishing. I don't know, but that,
He thought the fisherman was interfering with his space or something.
at this moment, there's the guy doing that, and there's the two people fishing, and nobody else is in the park, minus the staff.
Was this in the water or on the beach?
I do not know, because when the incident was reported to me, I was up in the parking lot, like by the maintenance building. So when I had mentioned it to Dakota, again, kind of that third-party incident, both people had left the park at that point, and it's, what would you say, that's hearsay at that point? Like, it's someone else telling me something, but I don't have the proof of it or the first-hand interaction with it.
So the person who was fishing reported to a staff member that another patron in the park told him if he didn't fish somewhere else, he would shoot him.
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
The third incident that I have on here is the one that Dakota was talking about with Merrill Park, where, we thought we had somebody trespassed for all the reasons that Dakota had said. He showed up. I took a phone call from an employee who was not on the clock. He was just driving by the park and noticed something and called me to say something. When that call was made to me, I was not aware who it was. It was just somebody with an axe. So then to come to find, or knife, whatever that was. But then to come find out that it was who we found out it was, and then the county wasn't doing anything about it, was just a little upsetting. I did know that, it was later in the evening, so I did contact the person who locks and cleans up the park in the evening to let him know that that was happening, and to, I didn't want him going to that park yet until I knew that it was safe to do so. So I did also do that.
And the township helped out, or was aware?
Yes, so, and all, Dakota is the township ordinance officer.
Yeah.
It's like if and when he has time to help us, he does, but to think that he's, our 911, he'll be here whenever we can, is not how that works.
But you'd mentioned that Mr. Martin was aware.
Oh, yes, that, it sounded like, I don't remember, to be honest, at this point, if I knew that he was there, because I was in contact with Dakota while this whole situation was happening. And I don't remember if I knew at the time that Supervisor Martin had gone down there, or if I had learned that, after me and Dakota talked again. I believe I knew at the time. But I will, people are trying to do something with the township hall. I know that they're trying to do something, that stuff has happened. It's just, to have the conversation that we have to do these things, hoping that it works, all those kinds of things are just hard to process.
Okay.
The fourth one, this one is specific to the disc golf issue. None of these other ones, to my knowledge, has anything to do with disc golf players. So
I think this is a separate item on its own, and I think it's going to be in depth.
okay.
If the board doesn't mind, I want to talk about this, but I think we need to save that for a little bit later. It's once we get through the rest of the incidents that seem to be directly related to safety.
That makes sense. Okay, so then jumping down to number 5. So this was a day that, it was last Thursday. I was at the park doing a shift with another park member. Again, I was in the parking lot cleaning up garbage. And somebody had kind of flagged me down as they were getting into their vehicle and said that there was somebody down on the beach who was yelling, was being aggressive, and that he had a small child with him. He was taking the child home with him, and if I wasn't going to go down there and do something about it, then he was going to be back in 10 minutes and he was going to do something about it. As this conversation is happening with this person, who was not threatening towards me, he was just upset with the situation. But then these other two guys had come up to me, and it turned out that they were involved in the same, they witnessed the same sort of thing happened. I don't know what was directed at who, but it sounded like somebody was maybe staring at the violent, aggressive person for too long. That person decided to be angry and said, he has a homophobic slur towards two people. When, you know, I was fully willing to go down there and see what was, you know, what I needed to do, but the second group of people told me that they did not think that it was wise for me to go down there with what they had seen and what interaction had taken place. They had said that the female that he was with had a black eye, insinuating that maybe he was the guy who, or, you know, why she had that black eye. I called Dakota. He answered. I told him what was happening, and he said that he would be at the park in, I believe he said like 10 to 15 minutes. So at this point, not knowing who was down at the beach, I was in the gator. I drove up to the guard shack to have the other staff member with me. It was about 8:15, 8:30 at night, so it's not unreasonable to pull somebody from the guard shack to not be doing that position anymore with the park closing at 9. So I asked him if he was okay with driving down to the beach with me. So we did that. I was just kind of checking garbage, being around the situation, seeing if anything else was going to happen, that I guess I would be there to witness it, have a little bit better of account, but also taking seriously that what everybody had said about me maybe not being the one who should go down there by myself to address the situation. So we were waiting for Dakota to get there. The man was actually there with a woman, and then they had two small children with them. I remember interacting with them earlier in the day. Nothing seemed off to me, so it was surprising that that was who now was causing an issue down at the beach. The man in that group ended up packing up from the beach. They made their way to their car, and they left before Dakota was able to get there. However, me and the other staff member were able to get his license plate number, so we did have that. We were also able to see a little bit, we didn't see any kind of interaction on the camera, but we were able to see like them leaving. We could verify that the make and model and color of the car and the license plate number. I don't know if you want to interject if I mistakenly say something, but when we pulled the license plate number, it did not go back to the description of how I remember seeing the female, so it didn't match up that way. So I have listed at the guard shack kind of this incident, so if that car does return, my staff are aware that it is, I don't think I said it explicitly what was happening, but that if they see this car come in, to notify me and Dakota right away, and we would just, you know, then go back down to the park and I guess see what happens. The sixth one then on the list, so last Friday, I did end up closing the park because of, we'll talk about number 4 that we skipped, but having seen what I had saw on Facebook and what other people had told me they saw on Facebook, we did close the park Friday afternoon through Sunday night. So I didn't have staff open the park on Monday, but I was there with other full-time staff. On Sunday night, I did reach out to the staff to see if they were comfortable with working at the park, if they felt safe, and they had told me yes at the time. But over this last week, we just have seen people who are usually, not shy, able to approach people, enforce a rule, are standoffish, that is not something that they feel comfortable with doing right now. And we have a couple instances where that has happened. The group chat has been a little bit more vocal about this happening and this happening, so they are a little bit more on edge on things that are happening. This 7th one that I have on the list is actually the first incident that happened, so I apologize for the order. It's not necessarily in any particular order, but this gold car is the one that Dakota had referenced earlier, where they had, oh, I'm sorry, did you actually talk about this? I don't think so. Maybe not.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I'd have to double check if somebody is looking at, if you want to tell me what date that was, but June 11th, thank you. So I did have it wrong on there. I thought Dakota did make contact with this group, or with this car, but the person drove off before he got there. We were, I believe he was at the Township Hall with me when a staff member had called me saying that there was a car there who obviously intoxicated, not knowing what they were on, but they were refusing to pay, but were also refusing to leave and looking for that whatever fight interaction that person was trying to get. I don't remember right in this moment what happened that made it so that the car actually did leave on his own, but the car did leave, but we were able to get the license plate number and all of that, and you did send the letter to the house. This license plate read back to a residence in Ashtamo. But just another interaction where, this time, yes, the staff was able to get them to leave, but it was a very contentious interaction.
And that was at 11:45 in the morning.
That was in the morning, and most of the interaction that I had with where it was a park visitor to a park visitor interaction, that was well before noon. I think it was like a 10 or 11. It wasn't, down in the day. There was 3 people in the park. You don't expect things like that.
So this person was intoxicated and in a car and then drove off?
I guess it's kind of hard to say, I don't know if I can legally say that he was intoxicated, but the man appeared to be intoxicated, just profusely sweating, the agitated state, that sort of thing. Refusing to pay.
Okay.
Refusing to just leave the air, yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, the intoxication and in a car is a bad thing too, and could be reported for that reason, but
Sure.
if you're not sure.
Sure. I guess
Hard to tell.
there are other incidents that I have regarding things like that. The same Thursday night where I had the violent man on the beach, we were trying to close up. It was well after 9:30 because of trying to get another group out of the park. But when I had finally closed down the park, Dakota had stayed and was still there with me. We noticed that there was still a car in the parking lot. Dakota had approached it. I noticed that he was having, whatever was happening, he was, I could tell that something was wrong. So I started running over there, and he was having a hard time waking this person up. Again, I can't, no breathalyzer or anything like that, but it did not appear that the person was okay, but also there's nothing that I can do or Dakota could do to legally do anything about that. Yes, assess that or correct. They were just sleeping. I don't know. So while I do have these 7 incidents on here, don't think that this is the only things that have happened. These are just the most severe, the most concerning. I guess some of the other things just at this point, it's just kind of a day at the park.
Okay. Okay, from a safety standpoint and from peace of mind standpoint, do you feel that your staff level is sufficient? Do you feel that, there more support for Dakota is needed? What is it you recommend just from these incidents that would help the staff perform with a little more confidence?
Sure. So I think it's been brought up to the board before that, hiring a seasonal person is difficult. Just, it's seasonal. They are only there for a couple of months. They can be the best seasonal worker, but there's still limitations to that. We're talking about hiring somebody late April, early May, having to teach them all the rules about what the park is, how, A to Z, you're teaching them everything. And then to also expect them to be able to, walk up to somebody and enforce a rule can be intimidating. First aid and CPR certifications. There's just a lot, so many things that have to happen in a short amount of time that it doesn't actually seem plausible for this to be a realistic expectation. I know that, for decades, this is how the like parks departments and other places have run their operations, that you have, you know, your full-time staff, because it is not warranted to have a full-time staff working throughout the year when there's only a couple of months where the park is going to be busy. So to have, you know, 10 to 15 people working at Robert Morris, that is not, you know, that's not how it would work at any of the parks. I do think having at least one more full-time person would just help me. The last 2 weeks that I haven't had a park manager, and I don't mean this complaining, just this is, you know, what has been happening. I have been working at Robert Morris. I have been doing, you know, the day-to-day stuff, making sure that, you know, I'm opening the park with somebody else, that people are good for the rest of the day. I'm making sure that at least Winky has concessions for that night, that they're up to date on that. But other than that, I'm not really doing my full-time job. Not to say that I'm neglecting anything, you know, things can wait, but I do have a pileup of things that I'm not being a parks director, I am being a park manager at Robert Morris. So I still maintain that having a park manager is necessary. It's just trying to figure out that, you know, we need somebody there in the evening hours, you know, really 7 days a week, and that's just a very hard, you know, it's a hard job to fill, hard to find somebody who is willing to do something like that.
Is the level of seasonal staff for what they do okay, or would you like to have, for example, the guard shack staffed by 2 people instead of 1 person? Do you think that would allay some of these problems, or no?
Maybe. I think it's just that hard thing where, you know, maybe, and I don't mean to, maybe, just to be clear about like what is happening. It's not necessarily like, you know, we might get 5 cars in 1 hour some days, or, you know, you might not see somebody for a couple of hours. So to have 2 people sitting there can get kind of, you know, they're not necessarily doing anything, not to their fault, but just, you know, this is the job. They're sitting here waiting for somebody to come in and they haven't seen anybody for a while. So I know it's always been kind of hard to justify even having that person sitting there for so long, because is that even worth it for that? But then when we're talking about safety and like, yes, usually when there are at least 2 people in a situation, that there is, you know, that second person to rely on.
Okay, so what is your seasonal staff level now in numbers of people? On a busy weekend, say.
Oh, sure. I will say that I have between 8 and 10 staff on, that I have 8 to 10 staff. We are severely outnumbered when it comes to how many people are in the park versus how many people I have on staff.
Is that just Robert Morris, or is that?
We only staff Robert Morris. When we have like special events or like a farmer's market, typically there's 2 people there. All of the other parks, most of the staffing is just more of like a cleanup, come in for an hour, leave for, you know, back and forth. So it's not as concerning, I guess. Merrill is still concerning because of the issues we have going on there, but Robert Morris is really that full-time, we need somebody here from 9 to 9. I think Winky, the softball complex, also kind of sets aside from this, that I haven't had any staff violent situations. I think the way that stuff is set up there, things are okay. It's just trying to figure out what the best staffing structure for Robert Morris is. I think more and more, you know, we've been utilizing Dakota an awful lot these last 2 weeks. So obviously it's looking like we do need that ordinance officer. I think even for myself, you know, approaching somebody and asking them to correct a rule, like that's great. But when I'm not the one, like that police type, it just doesn't always go over very well. Or to be honest, I'm not especially now, not as comfortable approaching a situation because I don't really know what might happen. What a actual staffing structure should look like, to be honest with you, I'm not sure. Just at our last park board meeting, I thought things were going fine. So to now think that the setup isn't ideal, that something does need to change, being in the moment, I'm just not really sure what that looks like, what needs to happen, how things should happen. But I just know that the way things are going right now, I don't think that we are in a great position, safety-wise.
Would it help, aside from staffing, to, for example, hand out rules as people come in, just as a handout, maybe what's happening during the day, during the
Sure.
park, but also here are the rules. And one thing that I have seen at other parks on their main building area is kind of code of conduct statements of, being nice to each other and courteous, and, if you need help here, have a direct
So,
map that people can follow to contact the person at the other building, or, if they have an issue.
Sure. So we do hand out rules as often as we can. Sometimes people coming through the guard shack are awesome. We love to have them there. Other times, it's very short. It's not an interaction that you're trying to stay in, and to give even one more other piece out is difficult sometimes. So we do that when we can. It's just a short little, the obvious things that, the no drinking, the no dogs, some of the things like that, just a snapshot of it. When you're talking about the code of conduct, would that work or not? I know that people aren't even reading our rules supposedly. So to also, I get like the message that it's trying to send out, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think safety is going to be the key. There's a couple things that I was just thinking about, and I just got this right now, so I haven't gone through the manual, but is there a way that we could have like a staff protocol so that, there's a process that we follow, that we document maybe first, and that includes maybe taking a photograph if they're comfortable. It can be from a distance, so we start to identify these individuals. Maybe not to engage, understanding that this is probably a situation that would lead to something more concerning. Maybe the process is then call Dakota, or call you or Dakota or whatever. And again, these are just suggestions that are kind of coming off my head. And then you get to the next level when the sheriff gets involved. Another thing, and I wish that they were here, it would be great if we had more support from police, but I know their hands are full too. I think we have a challenging community that we're dealing with, and I don't even think that they're local people in most cases, other than maybe the person that lives at Winky, I guess. So, but do you think if they had more tools, that you had more tools, like additional staff, or more of an authoritative type of application, that there's someone that is there to be sure that those ordinances are filled or followed accordingly? Is that the kind of thing that might help you? I mean, safety, I think, is really our main concern. I think we would all agree. I don't know if we have all those tools out in front of us, and how do we get to that point?
Yes, I agree with that obviously a safety is all of a sudden, like I said, 3 weeks ago, the park seemed safe, and all of a sudden it's not. Yes, I think having more of that ordinance officer or police type is going to help situations. I think having more seasonal staff helps in some cases, but it's still a matter of, we're still asking somebody to,
Yeah, it's going to be a kid. Yeah.
kind of, just because you had mentioned it, taking a photo on their phone, we actually don't want them to do that.
Yeah.
Just like for some reasons, but we have talked about using body cameras so that it's not linked to their personal phone, but I know, so that we can have some of that information, so it's not like, from memory, like I was there, I'm the witness doing it, but then we were trying to recall the events, how that goes. So we have talked about body cameras. It's just, it hasn't been something that we've done yet. Things have happened very quickly.
Yeah.
Katie, I'm assuming that this is not only an issue in Comstock Township. Is there ever an occasion when park directors from Kalamazoo, the county parks, Vicksburg parks, Battle Creek parks, maybe could share some, what they're facing and what they do, and, maybe kind of have a little bit of a powwow or a round table, and see if there are things that are working in other communities that that we could look at employing? And
Yep, I think that's like some of those things do happen. We, I'm part of the Michigan Parks and Recreation Association for annual conferences. There are.
do you know that there are other things that other parks do that if we adopted those might be helpful?
I would hope so, but I don't know for sure.
But I mean, you could kind of
Yes.
put a list together
Yes.
of some ideas that might
Yep, I
be
can
worth
certainly
looking into.
reach out and see, has anyone else been dealing with this? I think every department is going to be, specific and special to their environment, but
Yeah,
yes,
we,
maybe having.
Robert Morris Park has a beach, that's
Sure.
a different environment than a park with just a playground
Sure,
or
sure.
something like that, but,
Just our
I mean, in
circumstances, sure.
Battle Creek, they certainly have Go Quack Lake Beach, and, I mean,
Sure.
just kind of maybe,
Sure. It seems like, from what I know of our area, we don't have our own police force, and that might be one of the big things for us, where some of these other places that come to mind, and I don't know for sure that that's, how they utilize taking care of certain situations, but just knowing that most of them have a police department.
and I mean, and if Dakota has any very specific things that you think we're lacking that would make a big difference?
Yeah, so I actually went through the EAP in front of you, and I'm the one that kind of redid it, because that kind of falls into what I've done in other jobs. This is what I did full-time for a fire department, was train people in these kind of things. Some of it was outdated. I did sit down with the staff, the first half of the staff, and kind of go through it, both, everything from general issues to fire, medical, storms, people being violent, how to handle people who are breaking our rules, how to approach them, how to not get yourself punched. Some of them took to it well. Others, I could tell, were kind of scared about it, because it is real world. Like these are things that are happening. People are just not wanting to comply and deciding that violence is the option that they want to go. So I have tried to talk to them. I'm the one that brought up to Katie that we should get body cams for the staff. It makes things way easier. That if something starts to pop off, they can turn on that body cam, can record things. In the heat of the moment, people who are not ready to handle stress kind of forget what happens and can't remember things, but cameras record everything, so we can get license plates, what people look like. If something was to happen to a staff member, we can then give that to county and help them track down that person or persons. We are in a very weird area where we don't have our own police force, and that makes things way more difficult. It's not as simple as like the city of Kalamazoo being like, hey, KDPS, we got people who are not obeying over here, and you can get like 5 cops poured on them at once. We got the disadvantage where we have one officer here in Comstock Township, and even then, they don't have to stay here. If something else happens anywhere in the county, they can get pulled off. A good example is last year, the shooting that happened, or supposedly shooting that happened at Fort Custer, where a guy was there who got violent. I think he shot his gun off in the air, and then county had to show up. As a very long response time for them. I know that I know people who work at the military base across the street, and like it was a long time for something to actually happen, and we were kind of in that spot. If something bad was to happen at our parks, like the saying is, when second counts, help is only a few minutes away, and this is very much true, where things can go downhill pretty quickly at Robert Morris, and we might be waiting 10, 15, 20 minutes for county to show up. As far as extra safety stuff, like it's really hard to say, because I don't remember last year being this bad. I don't remember Katie ever asking me to come on out. Even in April and May, I didn't really have these problems. I did walk around the park because I was burning up there, and I was going to go look at more sites, and I ran into people, but nobody was doing anything that was extreme. It's just been this last couple weeks, it has been very crazy. I don't know if it's because of the weather or what, but it's been insane. I've been trying to be up there as much as I can. I know somebody accused me of being up there for 6 hours on a Thursday. I can't do that because I have an actual job to be doing. But like I'm very mobile in my vehicle. I have a hotspot in there, so I can do a lot of my office stuff for my vehicle. So when I have a moment where I need to do office stuff, I usually pull up at Robert Morris and sit there and try to do my office stuff just to be some sort of presence there. Because I get a 16-year-old might not want to approach a big guy and tell him, hey, stop drinking beer. I don't really have a solution to what to do safely. We are lacking an authoritative stance up there, and I don't have time to speak up there all day, every day. I am well and willing to come on in, and I have done it quite a few times so far this month, where I leave my house late at night to come up to the parks to help enforce something. That's also why I get paid, to enforce these rules. But what if I go on vacation? What if I'm sick? Like, these things do come up. It's not really a good spot for staff to hide either.
So perhaps we could also coordinate with the township if they're in need of officers as well. It could be a township issue, not just the Parks and Rec issue.
There are talks about that as well. Let me bring up sharing ordinance officer.
I think what Dakota's asking about, absolutely, we can talk about it. I just think that it's more of a long-term solution, not something that is going to necessarily fix what is happening tomorrow. But yes.
Yeah, so I was looking at it both ways. Short-term solution, right? So the whole two separate boards really confused me, but the township pays me to enforce ordinances, even though there's ordinances to be enforced in the parks. Me just sitting in the parks waiting for something to happen isn't productive of my time. But somebody has to be there, right? Seeing if you guys would be able to put up some money towards the township to like rent me for a little bit. That way they can justify not paying me to sit up at the parks while you all figure out a more long-term solution. Because I'm a body, I'm more than willing to get into a confrontation with somebody. That's why I get paid to do that. And that's my everyday thing. But that's in board meetings Mondays. Like that's my super short-term solution, to see if you can't put towards some money towards township to rent me. But then long-term, I am looking at possibly wanting to hire another ordinance officer. I know the parks, it'd be hard to justify hiring your own ordinance officer full-time, but maybe seeing if you wanted to go in halvesies with the township, and the ordinance department can also have like a little park ranger division inside of that, and we dedicate X amount of hours a week to the parks. That way, if somebody is sick, one of us is sick, the other one can then fill in. But that way I can have two staff, because I'm at a place now where just everybody now wants to shoot me. I've received so many death threats in the last couple of days, it's insane. So having a second person would be nice on my end, and in that way, if we need to give you guys somebody, you can have somebody else for a bit. But there's just a big cost with having your own ordinance officer. And I'm already equipped on my side with all the stuff that's needed, so it just makes sense. But short term would be if you guys want to put up money towards the township to rent me. I guess that's one way of saying it, and just buy you guys time to figure out what you can do. That's just a small solution I have. I'm pretty cheap too.
Well, I know that one time we talked about hiring a third-party security firm to also assist. Maybe that's also an immediate need, that something could be done, especially with the approaching holidays and that we have people on staff, and then we have someone like him that's able to confront when there's issue. I don't know what that looks like.
So the problem with that, especially with the atmosphere now in politics, a lot of your security companies are just observe and report, and it's more observing than reporting. Walmart has that fairly big issue where I have to go up there quite often to handle their handicap parking when it's supposed to be their job to do it, but they just like to observe and not do much else. So it depends how much money you want to spend. What depends
And it comes at a cost.
Yeah.
I think the additional funds would be just a matter of, I think, Katie talking to the township board, or at least the supervisor, the clerk, and the treasurer, because we do have a separate board, but we don't have a separate pot of money. It's all one big township pot of money. We're just a department like ordinance or clerk or whatever. So just having that conversation, because the money, whether it says it's from parks or not, it's just going to come from the same pot of money. So it would really be up to the township board, I think, to increase the budget for that sort of thing, whether it's another person or we wouldn't be really paying for part of Dakota because it's confusing, I know, but if they want to hire somebody else, it would be up to them, I'm sure, whether it's our person or not, it's going to be up to them.
That'd probably be good for you to explain to some of the board members, because they're under the belief that it's way more separate and it's completely different money.
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
How do you feel about, we talked about body cameras too. At least you can record what's happening, in real time and have that as a record. But we also have other cameras, up. If we can, should we increase that presence? Just identifying it as being up there might deter people from, being.
It seems like a few things that need to happen, not necessarily going to be able to happen before, the weekend, but it sounds like, we do need more cameras. We can't see all parts of the park.
Okay.
I don't think body cameras is a bad idea. It just, when it was first brought up, it didn't seem like an immediate, I need to go right now and buy it. Now, I should have had it 2 weeks ago. So I think, to me, it seems like there's multiple things that we need to do to kind of better prepare ourselves. It's just, like Dakota was saying, this was not like this last year. This is just a brand new, all of a sudden, this is happening, and we're trying to figure out what we need to do. So I think more cameras, the body camera, trying to figure out having more of that ordinance officer type position there. That still, I have questions about that, just because from what has happened, sometimes it's been earlier in the morning, other times it's later in the evening. So I don't know if it's unreasonable to try to expect a person like that to be there when the park is open, but it just seems like one of those things where it seems like it always happens when that person's not there. So trying to figure that piece out as well. I think the seasonal staff do a great job. It's just limited with, the kind of training that an ordinance officer would have, or even that I would have. It's just not something that we're trained for.
Get on to this goal.
So we had skip number 4. Number 4 is about the disc golf situation. I don't want to call it the league. I don't know who was involved with the league, who was separated from the league. But I guess it was almost 3 weeks ago, this Thursday, was the first time that Dakota had interacted with a disc golf league that we do have out there, and was giving them warnings about that, hey, guess what? You can't actually smoke marijuana here. You can't drink here, some of those things. I guess Dakota says that it went okay, but there were still, I believe he said 18 violations that he saw. So in a 3-hour period.
Yeah, in an hour and a half period.
Sorry, an hour and a half period.
I made 3 rounds. I made sure I went against the flow of traffic. That way people could say that I was not stalking them. I did this on purpose. And somebody tried to tell me that they were not smoking. And I said, yeah, I have a body cam and I'm recording and I see you smoking. And he decided to change his tune. So yes, everything I do is recorded. So yeah, I walked my best as I could against the flow of traffic. I even walked in the woods on a trail. I was not hiding behind any bush. If I was hiding, you would not see me. I would get way more crafty. 7-year Army vets, I would really do it up. I did cut through the woods because I saw somebody crack open a natty ice while smoking. I did cut through the woods, but it was fairly open woods. But I kept on moving, kept on walking. I really did my best to walk against traffic, and it would be, I made 1 round, I'd go back to my vehicle, sit there, type up all those warnings I just gave, try to do some office work, and then go back out, walk around, come back. When I first got there, I talked to the person in charge of the event. I had a smile on my face. I try to smile as much as I can. Sometimes it calms people down. Other times it really pisses them off. It's a hit or a miss. This one was the latter. But I told him that we were doing enforcement here, that I would be giving warnings. Warnings will be if people are caught smoking weed, I'll ask them to leave, which I didn't do. I just told them to put it out. But if they're smoking tobacco, told them to put it out, and then drinking, put it, either empty it or put it away. And if anybody refuses to follow it, then we will go ahead and write tickets. Didn't have to do that. Outside of a few arguments, people were pretty cool. They just didn't understand that they couldn't do that here. In total, I could have written $9,600 worth of fines if I truly wanted to. I didn't do that. We just got warnings. For the most part, they were pretty receptive. It was strange to see. Yeah, I made contact with maybe 20 people, but like 300 people had an issue with me, so it was strange, because there was maybe 40 people in the park. One guy was walking with like a 12-pack of Oberon, which I caught clearly on my body cam. I came in, you can't have that here. And he says, oh, he didn't know. The event owner did tell me that he was going to tell everybody as they were coming into the park that we would be enforcing rules. And I was quite surprised that nobody heard that from him. When I'd say, hey, you can't do this. I said, well, we thought we could. And I said, well, so-and-so didn't tell you that you couldn't? He said, nope. I'm like, well, you can't. Same thing with the time park closes. It's pretty obvious. You just gotta look around and see all those things. I even, again, led one guy to the sign that says, no smoking. Someone got a little huffy about it, but can't please everybody. At no point did I tell anybody to leave. No point did anybody get any tickets. It was, hey, don't drink beer, put the beer back, empty the beer, no smoking, things like that. I thought it went fine as far as enforcing ordinances go. I know this is new for Katie, but like whenever I enforce rules anywhere else, like it's common, people call and complain. That's quite the norm for me. Nobody's ever happy that I show up. So I thought it went well. Is this the same instance that follows Thursday? The next Thursday was two separate ones?
Kind of two separate ones. So,
Okay.
you know, that first week, things went okay, enforcing rules, nothing alarming happened, I guess, safety-wise.
I will say, I did leave at 6, because as late as I was staying. Another staff member came in like 45 minutes later and saw people back to drinking and smoking.
Oh, yes, that.
So my warnings only lasted as long as I was there.
So then the next Thursday came around. I actually was out there that night with Dakota. We walked the same path that he had walked. Again, I did talk to the league manager before we did any of that. Seemed upset with the situation, but was also was telling me that he was very understanding in what we were trying to do. So it seemed okay. Later that night, trying to enforce the 9 o'clock closing was very upsetting to them. Trying to get them to leave. It seemed like there were maybe, I could be wrong, but maybe 3 or 5 groups left.
There were still about 5 cars in there. And I will preface saying that I didn't come in to deal with the league. I was
right.
called in for a different issue, and it
Right.
just happened to be there as they were there late at night.
So we were there, we did the patrol, things seemed fine. We only we smelled marijuana a couple of times, but never found the source, so it seemed like things were improving, and that was great.
We found one person smoking.
One person smoking, and they were fine about that. Then I ended up calling him back because of the incident that was happening on the beach, so that's what brought Dakota back that evening. So dealing with that, then having the disc golfers situation. So it's 9 o'clock, trying to get them to leave. I had understood that that is something that they used to stay later at night, but just with all these other things that I knew that had been happening in the park, that the manager had told me that he was having to ask other people outside of his league to leave the park. It just reached it was very nice. I told him it was very nice that that's something that he was doing, but it was not appropriate or fair to him, asking him to do something like that when he's not an employee. I thought we talked about a couple of things, like doing a special event request sort of a thing that would allow them to potentially stay later than that 9 o'clock. But it was just all more of an aggressive, angry kind of interaction that everyone ended up leaving. It was fine. Then we had, it's not listed on one of my 7, but then we had that lady left in the park who kind of went unnoticed because of all this other stuff that was happening. So then, I believe it was Friday morning, all of a sudden seeing on Facebook that there was a post on one of the disc golf pages explaining his version of events and how he had, was just very upset with our Parks Department. He had said nothing threatening or anything necessarily wrong, maybe not accurate, but nothing violent. And I did also see later on that there was a post that was calling out that the threats that were being made under his post was not something that he was condoning, that needed to stop. But from one of the posts, and I think there was, I know there was one other community disc golf page that I'm not familiar with these different pages, but that under those posts, there's a lot of violent threats, a lot directed towards Dakota, with literally wanting to kill him, to shoot him. If they see him in the woods, that they were going to shoot him, that they were going to mace him, that they were going to take his gun. There were also comments about, being able to find park staff anywhere. Just because the park isn't closed doesn't mean a thing for some reason. While I know that I am a public worker, somebody had posted my photo along with my contact information, and that didn't seem appropriate to me. I'm sorry, I'll look back through my notes. I ended up stop looking at Facebook comments just because it was just overwhelming and violent and all of those things. So I talked to, I didn't make the decision necessarily on my own. I was trying to make a reasonable decision, but talking to staff, talking to Dakota, talking to other park staff, I thought the best course of action was to close for that weekend. One of the other comments that I had seen was talking about coming into the park in large groups, coming into the park and taking the disc golf baskets and tearing up the tee pads. So just, vandalizing. Yes, vandalizing the park. So I did end up closing the park. I did file a police report and citing some of these things. That was, probably around noon. But I, making the report with, the call center or whatever that is actually called. I did not hear back from an officer to take the actual report until maybe 6 o'clock that evening. In that, I was asked if I had contacted any of the people who were threatening on that page, and I don't know if that was just her or the deputy asking, if I did that, or if that was suggesting that that was something that I was supposed to be doing. So Saturday and Sunday it's closed. Monday, just, nothing had necessarily changed, but wanting to open the park for everybody for the people who do follow the rules, the people who do love the park to attend. Over the last few days, it does not seem like things have calmed down. I know that there was another threat today on something. So while I just wish that this could, just calm, we're just trying to enforce our rules. It's not that we don't want you there. We're just trying to enforce basic rules that we haven't made up. It's state and federal law, not smoking in the park, not drinking in the park, not intimidating or threatening our staff. So that's, I guess, that.
So what is the response from the Sheriff's Department about threats of violence that are posted online against specific individuals or threats for violence? What is their response? Is that okay to do, or is there?
The deputy that I was talking to, they said that they would, she didn't say make a note of it, but just, however they communicate with their people, that they would have a car drive through the park that weekend. And I told her that I had closed the park, and she said, oh, and that was the end of that.
Nowadays, it's really hard to go after things like that. Just with people having fake names on Facebook, it's just really hard to go after. Plus, they're short on resources.
But I mean, if there's something that appears online, a threat against a school or something, they usually close the school and they send in a team to investigate, and they put in, if somebody says they're going to put a bomb in a school, they send in a...
Yeah, that's a little bit different than a park with mean people on Facebook.
But a public place where there could be 150 people gathered and somebody makes a threat, it's...
I know it sounds weird, but it's different.
It's different, okay.
Well, Katie, we're coming up on a big holiday weekend here. So, can we think of something to perhaps make it better, like shortened hours, more people in the short term if we can get them? How do you feel about this?
You know, I want the parks to be open. I'm sure there's more good people, I don't mean to say good people, more people in the parks that are following the rules, good intentions, all those sorts of things. I've thought about, you know, do we shorten the hours? But when I'm looking at the incident reports, it's early in the morning, it's later in the evening, so that, I don't know how that would work. You know, I feel like at this point, we're just kind of, you know, trying to, like guess a little bit, like, you know, what's the safest option? I know we all want to have the park open. That's not, you know, just hurry to,
Right.
close down the park. I did see one comment where there's, you know, conspiracy theory that we are intentionally trying to close down the park because we want to put a data center there. So I get that there are things out that people are saying that are ridiculous, but at the same time, people are thinking anything and all the things, and to say that we are not trying to close the park for a data center, we are just trying to make sure that the staff is safe, the park users are safe, and the park is safe. That is, you know, entirely the purpose of the park board for, you know, the park staff. That is what we want. I just don't know what the solution is. You know, it is very hot out, so we have the beach that people can use, and it has been busier this week. It's 4th of July weekend, and that's an amazing place to go and have, you know, pavilion rentals. We do have pavilion rentals this weekend, and usually, you know, a wonderful place to spend with your friends and family. It's just really hard in the moment when I'm looking at all these things that have happened recently, that it sounds like people have not let things go, that a couple of our incidences, we still don't necessarily know who some of these people are, if they're coming back. I don't feel like the threat has been neutralized, resolved, thank you. So I guess I was just hoping that, you know, maybe from more of a outside perspective, that it's not directed towards you, that you aren't necessarily in the moment of all these things happening, if you can just kind of shed some light on what should be happening. But right now, it's just hard to, you know, I think about the staff out there all day long. I think about myself. I think about Dakota being out there. You know, it's more than likely nothing's going to happen, but I can't necessarily say that today, as opposed to 3 weeks ago, I could have said that, you know, yes, the parks are safe, everything is fine, where today I can't say that.
Katie, has the head of the disc golf league, has he been in touch with you at all? Has he tried to reassure you that these individuals are, you know, blowing off smoke or whatever? I mean, does he feel that these are people that he knows? Has he been in contact with you at all about?
He has not been in contact with me. I believe that he has, I don't know if it was a phone conversation, a face-to-face, how that went, but it does sound like he had a conversation with Supervisor Martin, who, I don't know if you want to speak on that.
Yeah, so I talked with Ben about it, because I informed Supervisor Martin on everything that's going on, just because I work for Township Board and he's my supervisor, and since he is not used to taking complaints about me, which is a common thing, I informed him of what was going on. He felt like that I made the right choice, just based off of everything that has happened. He did reach out to the Disc Golf League person to have a talk with him. That happened either Sunday or Monday morning. I think it was Sunday. And it sounds like that the Disc Golf League person the biggest issue was he wasn't given a warning about the warning, which that's what a warning is. And then also everything's all posted. He was just really upset about that. He acknowledged that these threats existed online, but it wasn't from him. That's kind of how far they got into it, that they were going to go to the city and go play at the city.
But to be clear, this is a league
Yes.
that we have affiliated with for at least 5 or more years, correctly? They've been they've been a league that have used Robert Morris Park for their disc tournaments and so forth. Did he feel like some rules were suddenly being enforced that they had never been asked to adhere to before, and he wondered what was different now?
So both when I talked with him on that first Thursday, and when Katie and I talked with him, it was very much he felt like that his league could do what they wanted because he's donated a lot of money to the park.
Okay.
Which I informed him that money doesn't buy you the right to break our rules. He did not agree with that, and I said, you're right, but I'm here to enforce them. I told him that we've gotten complaints about the league, because I have, people called, and he called that targeting. I said, no, it's called you breaking the rules, and I'm here to investigate. We're in public, it's fully legal. It's not harassment when I catch you guys doing it. And like I told Katie afterwards, after both Thursdays, to kind of relax things, that if this was any other group under a pavilion on the beach, they would not have gotten 18 warnings. It would have been your second warning and you're gone. So I gave this group a lot of leeway, a lot more leeway than I would give anybody else, because I know what they've given to this township and how much they've helped us. After that last Thursday, deciding that he was going to stay late and argue with Katie, I did give him 3 lawful warnings to leave the park. He chose not to follow them. So I did get his license plate. I was fully ready to trespass him from the park for doing that, because he did say even later, saying that he had lawful business to talk to Katie after I told him to leave 3 times. So like 10 minutes after. So like, well against our rules. We decided not to. We decided to just say that the league is not allowed back, at least for this year. I don't care how long he's been with us. It was totally unacceptable, and to see the threats on Facebook, I'm totally satisfied with the actions that we chose. The fact that they thought it'd be okay to stop threatening people. I actually just had somebody outside my house filming my house. When I showed up, they went screeching down the road, blew past a stop sign, and kept driving. So I'm 100% with the choices that I chose to go with.
Well, where we've failed, though, as a Parks Department, is we've never enforced these laws or these rules up until now. That's why I'm not clear how he's been given a key to close I was never aware of that any individual was given a key to stay late. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It stays 10 o'clock and it's still light out. But we never enforced any of these rules, and I can see how someone could get aggressive or assert,
Which rules are you referring to?
Well, I don't know, because obviously this has never been enforced before. And yeah, he's been breaking it, but he's assuming that he's in a position where it wasn't a problem.
Right, and so like that's why the first Thursday was just warnings.
I understand, but who gave him a key?
I do not know. I was aware that he had a key.
Okay. So that's the first problem.
And I don't mean to say that I don't know who. I know
No,
that it was a parks
understand.
director before me that had given him a key, not like, I don't.
Yeah.
It didn't seem, I don't think it had been a problem up until all of a sudden I know that he's having to enforce rules on people that, aren't a part of his league, and that didn't seem appropriate. That he was staying there later than, I'm guessing he thinks that he was leaving, 5 and 10 minutes after, but, that's not actually what is happening. That I do have more violent interactions in the park, not necessarily wanting to go into that with him at that moment. I didn't think that was necessarily of business to him, that, I was, moving forward, we can't have this happening anymore. You are not a park employee, that, so I'm not sure how long that had been a thing. I don't know if it's really been a problem up until that. I didn't know it was a problem. When I realized it was a problem, that's when I was telling him that he couldn't move forward. I wasn't saying that he could no longer play here. I was just saying that you could no longer have the key here. And that's kind of where the
And to
talk
break
about,
the rules,
right.
the ordinances.
And that's where it came up more with, other parks would let you do this with, a special request kind of form. It's like, yes, we can absolutely look into that. And I thought that was kind of the direction that we were headed into, but then, not entirely his fault, but then all of the comments on Facebook had
Yeah,
just
that
very
goes
much
way above
escalated
and
the
beyond.
situation to an unacceptable point.
It seems like there's always a name tied to the comment, I thought.
Yeah, so some of the comments were anonymous, and some people don't use their real names, so they can't be
Yeah, no
found
one's-
as easily. And it was more than just onesie, twosies, it was a lot of them.
Yeah,
But with this guy, it sounded like the agreement was that when we didn't have staff, he would lock up at 9 PM. He took it as being, when there was no staff, he could stay as late as he wanted because he has a key.
yeah.
And that was kind of the hard point right there.
I mean, the ordinance does say closes at sunset,
It's a sunset or when the
or the
park.
discretion,
Yes,
but. I mean,
and that's why it's posted at several places, 9 PM. You just really have to move your head 5 degrees one way. It's right at eye level and says closing at 9 PM.
So we closed it at, we not changed it, but we started enforcing a 9 o'clock closing because people were staying well later than what a
Yeah.
sunset would be. There are no lights down in the park, so then staff are closing in the dark, and that's
Not safe.
not safe. It was also a hard concept when the sunset time changes. So when you have this varied time throughout the summer, it just wasn't also working for communication purposes. So it was 9 o'clock is when the park closes. And even still, people are not getting the concept that, the gate should be locked at 9. It's not that you are picking your stuff up at 9 o'clock and leaving. So staff is still there later than they should be.
And it's been 9 o'clock for some time now.
I believe it started last year is when we started emphasizing the 9 o'clock because of the situations that I just mentioned.
So it wasn't just all suddenly we did it on Thursday to mess with the group. It's been like that for a bit now.
Yeah, but like the week before, there was nothing.
The week before, the staff have been trying to enforce the 9 PM rule.
Okay.
I've been called out a couple times to help them enforce that 9 PM rule.
Okay.
So it is being enforced. It's really hard to enforce it.
The signage did say, I mean, it looked like the signage was still saying sunset.
So it's taped.
Somebody taped over it and.
It was taped over at the beginning of the season, but down by the guard shack and on the main drive-in, it says 9 PM. So it's posted several places where it says 9 PM. And the staff do give them warnings.
Yeah, it just has to be one or the other.
So I have a bunch of questions. What's the protocol? Obviously, if they're seasonals and it hits 9 PM, they let them know, hey, the park's closing.
Yes.
Then do they stick around and wait for those people to leave?
I think they
Or will they lock the gate and
they
leave?
have been.
Our staff has to stay because they're the ones locking the gate. Is that the question?
Yeah, kind of. Have they ever locked them in?
No. I know in the past when a car has been left overnight and we haven't called a tow truck to remove it, that car has found its way out. That has not always vandalized the park.
Yeah, okay.
It's really hard at night when it's pitch black to go walking through the whole park to make sure
Yeah.
everybody's out.
Yeah. I've been to other parks too, and they say, hey, by the way, we're closing in like a half hour, just FYI.
Yep.
Yeah, oh,
And
yeah.
There's been a few Saturdays I was out there. I watched the staff at like 8:45, 8:50, go around and tell people, hey, it's time to go. It closes at 9, but then there's always some people who are like, well, 9 PM means I gotta go to my car at 9 and I gotta start loading up. And then I tell them, nope, 9 o'clock is when you're supposed to be gone because that's when the gates close, not when you can decide to start picking up.
A lot of times, now people are leaving at 9, but they left, they went to go to the bathroom one more time. So even if the staff did clean, they might have to go back into that bathroom to clean it again. So staff is not getting there before it's dark out sometimes.
Do we have a PA system at all? Perhaps we can announce, half an hour before the park will be closing.
Sure.
And the
We
gate
do
will
not
be
have a
locked.
PA, we do have a PA system. It does not work. I don't know when it broke. We do have a bullhorn. I would almost say though, if I would listen to more, personally, I would listen to someone coming up to me telling me that the park is closing more so than over
Yeah.
a PA system. Not everybody, so who knows, maybe they would prefer that.
Well, either or, we have to just remove the sunset, because that sets the wrong.
So I would say for sunset, that is appropriate for the winter time. Sunset for the winter, it's, that 4:30, 5 o'clock. We don't want people in the park at night because that's not safe for them walking around. We don't have lights.
There's also the word dusk, I've
Sure.
seen in the other ordinance.
Sure.
Yeah, but then it's a subjective viewpoint.
Right.
And that's a conversation you don't need.
Sure. So, maybe we do talk about, removing sunset entirely, and we can look that, sunset in the winter time is 5 o'clock, and we can comfortably say that, at 5 o'clock, the park is closed and getting rid of.
Yeah, seasonally, I know they change at River Oaks, and it's 9 o'clock's the max, and it just keeps getting less and less as it gets darker and darker sooner.
Sure.
Okay, so going forward, for this weekend, it's a play it by ear plan, correct? Day to day?
To be honest, I'm not entirely comfortable with that.
Okay.
I think, I've laid out kind of what has happened in the last 2 weeks. Nothing changed from me closing it Friday to opening it on Monday. It doesn't seem like things have gotten any better. So it's not like, because, the thought was, open it, then on Monday things will blow over. But it does not sound like that is the case. So I guess I would just feel more comfortable being able to say, yes, the park is open, it's safe because of XYZ. And I just don't feel like we're there yet to say that the park is open and safe because of XYZ. Not to say that we can't leave here tonight coming up with that. I just don't feel like we're there at that point.
Do we have a way to communicate to everyone? The parks are closed because, safety's at risk.
Before I did it on Facebook, with this last closing, I think this time, if it were to happen again, it would need to be Facebook and a sign out at the actual gate. I did hear that people did drive there, and I'm so sorry about that, but they drove there and were waiting to get in, like there was a line when it was closed, and they just maybe didn't realize that with the car in front of them. We would certainly need to put it on our website. Our website is not easy to deal with, so that was a mistake on my part. I should have put it on the website, but I did put it on as Facebook.
Dakota, can you be there more over the weekend, or is that?
So, like the,
Can we rent you?
right? So, here's my thought. My concern is this league is not going to go somewhere else Thursday. On Facebook, they said that they're going to go to the city. I'm not sure if that's going to be a thing. Who knows? And the fact that this league members have decided to get threatening, I don't think it's wise to keep it open Thursday evening. I don't know what they're going to do. Robert Morris is very secluded. And again, I have a full-time job outside of this that I still need to do. So I think keeping it open Thursday and Friday is very, at least Thursday is really pushing what I would feel comfortable with if I was Katie having staff there. As far as the weekend goes, it's the 4th of July. This is when everybody calls me and has a complaint about somebody. So as much as I say, yes, I could be available over the weekend, it's the 4th of July weekend. Everybody's going to call me with problems. So I'm probably not going to be available to just be up at the park. I'm going to be going to every other house because they're shooting off fireworks and scaring their dog. I've already had those phone calls.
Is it an option to leave the park open during the day and not have staff there?
That was something that I considered. Some of the, not that I am saying no to it, but some of the things that I thought of would just be that now we do have we have one incident where it was a, violent threat to park user. So just that was a thought, that our rules are not going to be enforced. So well, you know, there's no one there who's going to be able to enforce the rules, that there's not going to be somebody there to man the, you know, take money in and, you know, but maybe that's things that we're willing to do because we want to have the park open, but we're not quite ready to have the park staffed.
Well, is it,
The cleanliness of the park, those kinds of things. So I think there might be something there. There's a couple of things to think through if that's the option that we go
well,
with.
we want our patrons to feel safe too.
Sure.
So that's,
Or what about
something
reduced
we
hours?
ensure.
You know, not through the evening or till,
The reduced hours was hard just because some of the stuff did happen in the morning. And then you're just talking about like,
but I mean, specifically addressing this disc golf scenario
oh,
for tomorrow.
Yeah, so it like if.
I don't know, do they just play all day? or-
No, they usually show up after noons, like 1:32. My original suggestion was closing at noon on Thursday. That way, we don't run the risk of the league coming here. But then I also get the concerns about the weekend as well, with people are gonna have fireworks, it's gonna get crazy. I'm sure people are gonna try to bring alcohol to the beach, because I know if I was young and dumb, I would also do that. Just gonna have nobody there to enforce rules, or if you're going to have park staff there, I'm not going to be easily available. County sheriff's not gonna be easily available. They can be out and about doing crazy things with people. And really putting people in a bad spot, and on the off chance somebody decides to get violent, you've got two staff out there with nowhere to really hide.
so what about Merrill Park and the other parks? I mean, you have the
Yeah.
same situation.
So Merrill's not staffed, and it is pretty out in the open, and it's been less of, try not to sound mean. We have a particular issue in the parks with the homeless, and that seems to be our only problem. It's not of a league coming in, or a family coming in, or a guy driving in with a 12-pack wanting to drink. It is a select group of people that is the cause. Still a safety concern. Like, I know one of our staff members goes there on Monday nights to do stuff there in the parks with a group and sell things, and I feel hesitant about that because it's just her there. County's not readily available. It's in the evening. That's when they get busy. I'm not readily available because I just can't sub out hours here and there for something that may or may not happen. If you talk about Robert Morris, that is staffed, I feel uncomfortable with staff being there right now. If it was me with Merrill, same thing, but Merrill is wide open, it's easily visible, that kind of deters most people from wanting to do things.
We were across the there too, just prior to our meeting.
Right. It's just, Rob Morris is secluded, if something wants to happen, it's really hard to see compared to here. Yeah, it's, the threats all around. I don't have an answer for you. I'm just glad that I have body armor, to be honest. Now having to go out to the parks, go deal with more people, like, it's just the world that we live in. I don't think Winky is that bad, but that's because it's further away from everything else.
Oops, I'm sorry. Did you say earlier that the league is, you cited the league and so it can't operate as a league?
So I made a decision that the league, the entity itself is not allowed to come back to a park. The individual members can,
Okay.
but the group itself cannot.
Okay.
So people were calling, wanting a refund. The individuals are not trespassed. The group is. The group is not allowed to come back for the rest of this year.
How would
It is-
you know?
When I see him, so using reasonable suspicion, when they set up their marker things up at the lanes, when he has his big baskets laying out underneath his canopy, it's pretty obvious as a group. Yeah, it's yeah.
Matching uniforms?
No, they all go check in. Yeah, it's, so he sets up a van, he has a canopy set up, he has a bunch of boxes set out that they can grab things. Every hole has an object, so just using reasonable suspicion that it's a leak.
So they won't be there tomorrow then?
They might be. They obviously don't want to listen to what I say. So like I would want to close the park down just in case, because my next thing is calling county, and that's going to be a hit or a miss. Because again, I can't physically make anybody do anything, and relying on county to do something, I have better odds of winning the lottery than to get them to do what I want. And I don't want to make this a habit of them believing that they can just break our rules and nothing happens. So I feel like the safest thing to do is close it down Thursday. Again, who knows if one of them decides that, you know what, I'm gonna have a bad day and go pick a fight with the staff. And that would be a really bad day. I do know we are not the only park to do this, that they have been asked not to come back to other parks as well, or have cool-off periods. This was not out of the norm, and that's why I made that decision, because it was not just, looking back on it, it was not just us that has made that decision.
Okay.
I believe the city has also had that issue. Yeah.
Okay, so Katie, then you are recommending that we close the park for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday? Is that your recommendation?
It is my recommendation that we close those days unless there's something that we can come up with tonight that will change our situation. I don't necessarily have anything to offer as what that solution would be. I do not want to have to close the park for these reasons. I just don't feel in this moment that it's safe to do so unless we come up with a solution. I don't mean to keep pressing for it. I know it's not an easy thing to come up with. I just want to make it clear that I do not want to close the park unless we're able to come up with something else that changes our current situation. If we can't come up with a solution to change our current situation, then yes, I think we have to close the park for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But then again, nothing has changed for Monday. The situation doesn't change come Monday. So it's still just kind of biding time. It's trying to figure out what a good long-term solution is. But, and you know, we're in the middle of summer, so it's really terrible and hard to try to come up with this big of a issue when we're in the middle of it.
Maybe short notice, and Dakota mentions it's a busy weekend, but I wonder if we could have the supervisor contact a neighboring department that's not the county, and maybe they can do a short-term contract for the weekend, Township or the city. I'm not sure if they even do that thing, but, or private security. I know that if we talk to the police, we can use the police fund. If it's private security, that's probably not possible because it's specific that it has to be the Kalamazoo County Sheriff or any other police entity. I'm just thinking if we do it that route, there's definitely money there to spend, but if it's private security, I don't know if it's legal to use that same fund.
So how do we get her to build? Sorry, how do we enable that?
I mean, we can make a motion, but I think she would have to talk to the supervisor, and he can probably do it. He has the authority to make emergency purchases,
Okay.
I guess, and then have it ratified by the
'Cause it
board.
feels
I don't know
like
if
that.
this is an emergency. I guess it could
The
be.
borders
It would
on
be, yeah. And then otherwise they'd have to have a special meeting, but that requires 18 hours, so
Yeah.
she would have to talk to.
I would think that would be our first option, to do that and get additional help. My second option would be spend the money and get the additional security to the third party and spend that dollar.
Mhm. And maybe look at that additional ordinance officer sooner than later
Yeah,
that we could share.
I think
like a
it's
second
here and
person
now
to
is what
share.
we've got to react to.
Yeah. This weekend requires
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
I think this weekend it's be more likely that we get private security than we do a different department, as everybody's going to be busy with people doing things. I've been in fire and EMS for 12 years. People get really crazy come the 4th, and everybody's busy. I think private security is going to be probably the route that would be more likely.
I just have a question. When you're talking about private security, isn't that the same thing where you were talking about it's more of an observe and report?
Yep.
So,
Because they are not sworn in like me, so they really can't enforce the ordinances. They can ask politely, And then we were relying on county sheriff, who's gonna be busy helping Joe find his 4 fingers because he held fireworks.
But I think it's a better resolve than having your employees feeling like they need to go up and confront this group or family or
Yeah,
what have you.
you are hoping that they don't call our bluff, that the uniform means something.
And maybe you don't necessarily know the answer, but if it's a just observe and report, would the expectation be that the security guard would go up to a group and tell them that they can't smoke, or would it be?
Yes, like they could do that, but if they say no, like then it's gonna be a phone call to county sheriff, who's gonna be like, we have other things to do rather than go kick somebody out for smoking a cigarette. Because they already don't listen to me.
So, is there a motion for Katie to define? Right, well, what I'm saying is to, the number one option was to get emergency approval for funding to get either an ordinance officer in place or private security we have to coordinate with the township in funding this. So that would have to be written up into a request. And is there a motion for the township to approve Katie to pursue that option?
Or would it be
So authorizing her to ask the township.
Right, to make those preparations. Right. Right, right, but then that still doesn't help us for this weekend.
This will be sooner than later.
So what's your thought on that? Do you think it's worth, I mean, for a weekend, it's probably not a huge investment. Do you think it would help, or do you think it would hurt to have somebody like that there? Just the presence of somebody?
I'm sorry, I'm thinking.
okay.
I think it would, maybe like a security person who's not necessarily going to be enforcing rules, maybe it at least tones down a violent act. That seems maybe reasonable. I don't know how quickly that stuff can come about. And I'm not trying to make excuses, like absolutely, if that's like the thing, then, calling people tomorrow morning. But just not knowing, am I, do we want 2 people there? Do we want, 1 person there for, from 8:30 when staff gets there until, we'll say 10 o'clock, when people are leaving, like, I guess just being on the spot, just trying to think through what that looks like. And not being familiar with security companies, I don't want to choose a bad one. I don't know if that's a thing, but just those are some of the thoughts that are coming to mind.
Okay.
Patrick, in your wealth of experience in the city of Kalamazoo, have you got anything to weigh in on this?
No, I mean, I think that those are the correct options to pursue. Like Dakota said earlier, we don't deal with the sheriff, so it's.
And this is not new for you either.
No, I mean, this happens all the time. Happens all over. So, but the dealings with the city, public safety compared to the sheriff is.
Do you think a private security company, just having the presence of more adults, more eyes on what's going on?
Absolutely. Yep. I do.
Would be helpful.
Uh-huh.
Because if you.
And in order to
have a
keep the
staff
park
person,
open, yeah.
If you have a staff person at the guard shack and you have a staff person in the concession stand and you have a staff person who's monitoring the restrooms, needing supplies or whatever, and then you have some dedicated people who are just monitoring what the patrons are doing, and it's just some extra eyes, and especially if they're mature eyes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or eyes that look, like they have some authority, rather than, 17 or 18-year-old who's.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And if staff do need help, like I am a phone call away, I just can't be up there the whole 4th, because I'm probably gonna be busy doing other things.
Yeah. Understood.
Katie, even some of the retired individuals who help with opening and closing the park, any chance that any of them would be interested in being in the park a little bit over the weekend, or?
I can't necessarily, I know one person would not be available. I just don't feel, even though, like, they're older, mature adults, I just don't know if I feel comfortable asking another park employee to be put in a situation like this when they don't have this sort of training.
But they may be someone that would have at least the experience or the comfort to help and assist as another set of eyes, I think is what you're alluding
Yeah,
I think-
just the presence of more, some more people there
Yes.
who are watching what's going on and are aware if somebody is blatantly, grilling on a picnic table when they're not supposed to or something, just, to be kind of monitoring what is happening. And
I guess I'm, I do not want people grilling on a picnic table, but I'm not past the shooting threat and the violence of that piece. So while a security guard, might be able to handle that situation a little bit better, just having the, extra staff on, I don't think helps it with that role. I don't mean to sound like a Debbie Downer, I just, what I see. But it does seem like if I could get a security company to come out, that maybe that is a good option moving forward. Is there any sort of recommendations if anybody knows a company, or, I don't know, just anything? This would be something new that I haven't dealt with before,
to. Yeah,
especially on a short-term basis. Or, okay.
perfect.
Okay, so then would, just to play this out, just because, this is happening soon, if I am not able to get a security company, then we just close? If I do get the security company, then we can be open? Is that the?
Brett's first suggestion was, as I understood it, was to utilize resources within the county or the township.
It was, but based on what Dakota says, they're probably not going to be available, I'm guessing, because they've got to,
Okay.
it's probably all hands on deck
Yeah.
anyway
Yeah,
for the weekend, but
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's worth a question. I don't know.
yeah. And I don't know if they could pull something together that, well, I don't even know if a security company can, but it doesn't hurt to ask.
No, absolutely.
But if you can't, I mean, it's a terrible weekend to close, but I think everyone's safety is more important than
Yeah,
anything else.
we have to communicate it though. I mean, people have to know why.
Sure, yes,
And you have pavilion rentals, and,
I do.
groups that would have to try to make other accommodations or whatever.
I guess, so, tomorrow is Thursday. Trying to get a security company to come in tomorrow afternoon is kind of that's what needs to happen. If it's that they can't come until Friday, then me closing the park Thursday, and, whenever they can come is when the park can be open. But I guess then just, how far does that go out? Is it that, Monday we're open? Is it without the security guard? Are we asking the security company to be with us indefinitely?
When's their meeting?
We meet again a week from Monday.
So on that note, and kind of thinking along the lines of the individual that was trespassed here, that if we did get a security company and we could have that person work on Monday, would it be beneficial if you had the time to possibly be around Merrill during the farmer's market to make sure that was safe and to see if that person did show back up again, and then?
So Monday is a board meeting that I had to be
Oh,
here
that's
for.
right.
I mean,
And again, if he shows up, he's going to stab me. I 100% believe him that he's going to stab me. So, like, I don't want to go down the route that I would go down if he tries.
Yeah.
Especially the park full of people.
Yeah.
That's why I drove away the first time, because there was a bunch of kids there. When I came in for the axe complaint, I saw him laying on the ground. I immediately left because I didn't want him to see me, and let's get into it with the park full of kids.
I'm sorry we're here, but safety is number one, and these are hard decisions to make. Appreciate all your due diligence in trying to get us here and get this information up front.
So then the farmer's market is in question also.
Yes, because there has been a threat there, because we do have staff there, an event there. Yes.
Then maybe keep the security on until Monday. I mean, it sounds like it's a thing that we have to do if we're going to have parks available to people. Is that we're responsible now to try to keep them as safe as possible.
Sure.
Yeah, the question just becomes, how about Tuesday and then Wednesday and Thursday?
No, I understand. That's what I'm saying. And when does it stop? When
Yeah.
does it stop?
And I mean, once it becomes public knowledge that the park is continually closed because of violence or threats or whatever, I mean, then, I would imagine that people will just start avoiding it altogether, and we won't need to worry about staff because we won't have any patrons in our parks.
I would hope that, I'm confident that at the end of this, working together, we will find a solution that will make the park safe, that the park can be open, the staff will be safe, the park will be safe, the guests will be safe, and we can, just get that out to people, that is this family-friendly place, that we're safe, you're safe, please come back, and, it's just that PR stuff that we're getting across to them, that, please come home, please come back to our parks, that sort of thing. It might not be overnight that we get our guests back, but are people going to come now when they hear us talking about this, when they hear that this incident happened, that incident happened? I know that people don't come already because of some of these issues that we're dealing with.
Well, it sounds like in the near term, we have to get this extra security if we're going to be open for these upcoming days in advance. And also beyond that, we're just going to have to hire more staff. And we're going to have, like you say, ranger going through, and the patrons will know that they're there, and they'll feel much safer, and it will be safer. So we're just going to have to increase the staff.
I think if you can at least get the security for the 4th of July weekend and maybe for the farmer's market, I'm guessing it's easier to close the park during the week than on a weekend as far as number of people there.
Sure.
And then maybe talk to the administrative team about getting something on the agenda Monday to try to hire somebody quickly, another ordinance officer,
Okay.
for the longer term.
Sure.
If we can get the security for this very important weekend and then try to expedite hiring someone to take care of the longer term, it's going to be cheaper than hiring security all the time.
Right,
I'm guessing.
So I tried already to have that conversation a little bit, and people are just really confused between the park board and the township board. And like, where does ordinance enforcement begin for the township, and where does it begin for the parks? And then like, where's that lawful right stand? And then who's going to cover the cost?
Who's confused?
I'm gonna say people.
The board, or is it
Citizens?
citizens?
No, the board.
Okay.
I can help with that.
So that'd be the biggest goal. Second one is, when they last hired for an ordinance officer, I was the only good applicant by a mile. And we don't have a good history of hiring ordinance officers who understand law or ordinances, and kind of gets us into trouble. So hiring somebody good isn't going to be cheap, and it isn't going to be fast, because we've also got to train them on the ordinances themselves. If we're getting somebody who has absolutely no idea what they're doing,
Yeah.
I'm not going to feel comfortable having them out in the park all by themselves.
Like a skill position.
Yeah. So that's not a short-term solution. That is more longer term. Because that's assuming that we can find somebody. And talking with the other ordinance officers in this county, a lot of other townships are trying to find a second ordinance officer to back up their first one, and it's running into issues that there's nobody good who's qualified to be out there, nobody wants to do it. I know nobody's going to want to work here knowing that you get death threats weekly. Like that's a thing for me, and people don't want that. That's why people have left here within a year of working here, is they get tired of the death threats.
You mean as an ordinance?
Yes.
Patrick, is Woods City of Kalamazoo, if there's a beach there, is it always staffed and?
It's never staffed.
It's never staffed, so people just come and use the beach and
Swim at their own risk.
swim at their own risk. So we could put a sign up that says park is open, you get your, I mean, that's what you do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it used to be lifeguarded a long time ago, but then, yeah, when they, whatever,
And you
decided,
found it to be, of course, there's no admission
know.
charge.
right.
I don't know.
But, I mean, you're not getting calls there because of incidents or
No.
anything with it. People just come and use it as they please.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
are
and
there
there's-
opening and closing hours? And does
Yes.
somebody lock it up at a certain point?
Yes, there's a gate down to that.
And so somebody's
Area.
got to round up anybody who's in the water or who's in the park and say, we're closing now, and,
Yeah,
but it's all,
and that's,
it's all managed and,
yeah, and that's why I asked. I mean, they generally make, an announcement or call out if there's cars in the parking lot that they're going to close the gate, and they'll wait for half hour, 20 minutes, and then if nobody comes up and there's still cars, they shut the gate. There's been, people shut in,
Well,
right?
One of our ordinance goals and mission goals is to, ensure safe parks for families and others, not just to have it open.
I'm sure.
Well, that's ours too. Yeah, I mean, that's the entire city's, but it's.
But it's not
essen-
monitored at all, so it's kind of up to the people coming to protect themselves.
Exactly. Yep,
Okay.
yep.
But you do what you can,
Sa-
and
yeah.
people use it, and it
Mhm.
works.
Yeah,
But you also have KDPS, who is just
correct.
phone call away, but we don't have that.
But,
Yeah.
but at Woods Lake, I mean, you have restrooms, right?
Uh-huh.
So does somebody from the parks go through every now and then to make sure there's
Yeah.
hand towels or toilet paper or those kinds of things?
Yeah.
And-
So during the day, we have park coordinators that have so many specific parks
Right,
that they're assigned
not there
to.
to monitor what anybody's doing?
No.
or
And then
stop
we have-
anybody from smoking, or?
Yeah, no, that's, and then in the evenings, we have park rangers, 2 of them normally that work together, that'll go around to the main parks, check the bathrooms, and then towards the end of the evening, they'll lock up the gates that we have, yeah.
So we could go to a system like that.
Mm-hmm, yeah, and we used to have a security company that would just be in charge of closing the gates, but the price paying for that was,
Exorbitant.
it wasn't worth not having an actual person on staff to be able to answer questions or help someone if they had a park reservation that, didn't go well.
So without it being staffed, is there a lot of vandalism in the restrooms, or is that not typically an issue, or?
Oh, no, it's an issue,
It is an
yeah.
issue.
Mhm.
You just have to address it as it happens, and,
Mm-hmm, yep, unfortunately. Yeah.
so we could leave the park open and just not have staff there.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I brought it up. We have quite a few of those, well, I wouldn't say quite a few, but we have some bigger parks that have restrooms that we open in the morning and then close in the evening, and there's not really a staff person around. But then again, you lose out on the, revenue of the entrance gate and then concession.
And you don't know how many people are attending, though, all throughout the day, because
Yeah.
it could just be a few, brave and strong that are out there doing what they want, and nobody else
Yeah,
could.
and
Yeah.
that could be the case in Comstock too. Those that want to use it will come and they'll use it, and those that want to stay away will stay away. And, I mean, to miss out on the $5 admission fee would hardly balance out the cost of security. I mean, I would think, we would lose the revenue of not collecting but,
Let alone the social media commenting and all the other nonsense that goes with it.
right. I think that's something to consider.
Yeah, I think you're right. Plan B?
Well, I think we'd, like to hear from citizens about that. Yeah, we have all these new playgrounds and facilities, and if you're too afraid to go to them or have your kids be around them, what good is that? And this is all tax money, going to maintain these things. You want it for everybody. Everybody should be able to, follow really basic rules.
Right, but in
And be able
reality,
to do
there's
that.
no way that we can ensure, I mean, even if you had, we all know though, these things happen everywhere, and churches and schools and
Well,
movie theaters, and if there was a way to prevent it, why, it wouldn't be happening all the time. So it's just part of life, I think we have come to find out. And nobody would have to go to a park that didn't feel safe. They would just go if they wanted to.
I'd say with both of those suggestions too, just because we don't staff the park for a weekend doesn't mean that has to be our model forever. If that's just what we do for a short period of time, or if we do security and we just do that for a short period of time, any decision we make, it doesn't have to be, forever.
well, you have, currently direct threats and things happening, so you have to react to that. But long-term, laissez-faire, I don't know. I don't think that helps build a good community.
I know.
There's some things in behavior that just aren't good for anybody. So,
But even then, staff still have to go there. Even Merrill staff still go there. What's going to happen when Nick decides that he's going to have a bad day today and just go stab somebody? And then that's more probable than not. My interactions with him in the last few months have gotten pretty extreme. And what if we have a security guard there and he mistakes him for me because he is high off of drugs and they get into it? A lot of this falls back on county. I've had several conversations with the sheriff himself and his understaff. I haven't gotten it anywhere. I get told promises and then it just doesn't happen. One of Sheriff Fuller's staff was, from what I heard, was supposed to be at the homeless committee meeting last night, and he was not there, even though he was supposed to be to address this issue that we had.
I thought you said somebody was coming tonight.
I don't know if maybe they're just in the parking lot, but I did make that request and I was told that there would be somebody here.
Yeah.
So, yes, point taken.
That's kind of the point then.
yeah, one of Fuller's captains was supposed to be at your homeless committee to address the Nick issue in the park, and he was going to be there, and I know that he didn't show. So it's a really hard spot to keep having staff out in places knowing that they might get stabbed or shot. And I don't know about the Facebook threats. Granted, people are now showing up at my house, but I fully believe Nick is going to do it. And he's had a bad trip before in public, and he was stabbing the water, and county didn't do anything about it. I wound up going out there and talking him out of the water, which was way more than I get paid to do. And then I told him leave, then county showed up and told him that he could stay. I just don't have a solution for having staff, even in parks, to lock up, to do events, because people are just one bad thought away from doing things, especially with Nick here at Merrill. He's just one bad thought away from doing something.
Yet, I would think that having more staff, more visibility is a deterrent, to someone like that.
I used to think that, and
But
my
not all
recent
people I know.
experiences, that is not
Not
how,
to him.
that's what people say, that is not in
Not in
practice. I wish it was, I believed it 3 weeks ago, but I do not believe that anymore.
That's not the case.
It almost seems like people look for those instances anymore.
So the only solution is that he be removed from the situation, and the police are not willing to do that.
For Merrill, that is a solution, is to have him removed. 100%. County is not going to do that. They made it blatantly clear they're not going to do that. They can walk in here right now and tell us that they would do it, and I would not believe them.
Okay.
So,
Do we have to go to the Kalamazoo County Board of Commissioners for a meeting, and
we are not the only ones who have the issue with county sheriff. In my role, there's a lot of other ordinance officers who have issues with county sheriff.
they must answer to the Kalamazoo County Board of Commissioners, right?
He is elected.
Yeah, I mean, to the tax, but I mean, the sheriff's department is answers to the Kalamazoo County Board of Commissioners, I can't say with your constant complaints.
They already get constant complaints. It hasn't changed anything yet. They already get constant complaints, and they already have their hands tied with the jail not functioning right with the water, and we still can't get things done. Dealing with Robert Morris is one thing, because as I think it is possible somebody could come in and cause harm to staff. I would also be concerned about that. Merrill is more probable than not that Nick is going to have a terrible episode and somebody's going to get hurt.
We are more powerless to do anything.
Correct. Welcome to my job. It's hard for me to enforce rules when I can't even get county to go back me up.
Well, so,
And I will add a second, with the whole Supervisor Martin showing up to watch that. I called Supervisor Martin because he is my supervisor, and he's the one that filed the police report against Nick for wanting to stab me. So I wanted him present because I had a feeling this was not going to go the way that we wanted, and I wanted him here so he could articulate what happened with that police report. That's why I contacted him. And that's why I also want him to witness, because it's one thing for me to say that they're not helping. It's a whole other thing to actually witness nothing happening. And I wanted him, my boss, because it also affects my job, to witness that things are not happening. And it's a service that we pay for.
Katie, it looks like then two options, either closing the park for the 4 days and trying to come up with more patrolling folks, or, trying to get it even sooner than that and closing it day by day, or giving up entirely.
Or leaving the park open?
Leaving the park open.
Or just open and I have it doesn't sound like a responsible thing to do to me, especially in the short term, because
That could-
people will be put in harm's way without any help at all, so without any attendant to even go to.
But it's open in the wintertime without staff, right?
Yeah.
All of our other parks are open without being staffed. Merrill is only staffed for,
For taking the money.
Merrill is only staffed for specific events.
But I mean, the reason that we have staff at Robert Morris Park is because there's an admission fee.
It sounds like that's one of the reasons. I wouldn't necessarily know the whole reasoning behind why that park is staffed. I know the reasons, what we do with staff now, but like way back when we had staff out there, I couldn't speak to why we put staff there, if it was just because we're taking money in, or,
Difference between Robert Morris Park and the rest of the park, because that's the only park that requires.
sure, I see what you're saying, yeah.
So,
So for this, for the immediate, would you be comfortable with a motion if we directed you to speak to Supervisor Martin about using some emergency funds for security, and if that didn't work, giving you the authority to close the park or leave it open without staff as you see fit? Would you be comfortable with that authority?
So it's the emergency funds, talking to Supervisor Martin, if that's something that we can do, and what would the emergency funds would be for
For
security?
security.
Okay,
yeah.
and
I don't
then
think you're
if
going to
he-
get police. If you could, that'd be better, because we could just use the police fund, but
Not to,
talking to him about both.
sure. Not to say that he would or wouldn't, but if he says no to that,
Sure.
can I use our budget for something like that? If it's, I mean,
It would still require
Oh.
the emergency purchase, otherwise you'd have to wait for board approval. That's why we're talking to the supervisor, because he can do that without board approval and then have it ratified later.
Gotcha.
He has that authority.
so I'm not saying that he would say no, but if he,
Right.
to figure out this out while we're all here. So if he did say no, then my next option would be
To close the park?
To close the
If you
park.
thought that was the best, or I guess
Or
one of the
to-
options is to leave it open with,
to leave it open.
I mean,
with-
you have to open and close it, I guess, unless you're just going to leave it open all night.
I would say we would open the restrooms.
Right.
And have somebody come back through, I don't really know when, because to try to get people to leave would be kind of tricky potentially.
And maybe at that point, you could get a deputy or somebody to go with them just that time instead of being there all day. Maybe they'd have, I don't know, I can't.
Oh, sure.
Sounds like not, but.
If I can just pause just a second.
Sure.
For a security company, how come that has to go through the process of being an approval? Why can't it be just like a, you know, a vendor in a sense?
I suppose it could.
Yeah.
If we just approved the purchase, I guess?
Yeah, the ability for her to,
I guess.
I mean, I'd love to
We don't
go-
have a dollar amount, I guess, and I
yeah,
don't
it's
know
kind
what
of
that dollar
vague.
amount would be.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, it would all have to be approved, even if we approve the purchase.
Yeah.
It would still have to be approved by the township board, because
Okay.
it's all, again, it's all in the same
Bucket, yeah.
budget. They're in control of the budget, essentially. I mean, if we pulled it out of a fund that had a budget in it, I suppose we could,
Yeah, budget item.
yeah, we could approve it that way. I would still suggest talking to the supervisor, just so he's in the loop with all, because it's a pretty major thing to do, hire security. But however we wanted to frame it, it's still money being spent that,
Do you feel comfortable with that?
I think so. I guess it would just be like, if talking to a security company, if they're not, willing to, I guess the expectation isn't necessarily that they're going to enforce rules, but then now we're kind of back to square one of now we're not enforcing the drinking and the, but,
Process of asking for the money and how it would be done.
oh, I'm okay, asking that. For the security piece, I'm comfortable with it depending on what the security company is actually going to do and what we're okay with that being. If it's just if people don't follow rules, they don't follow rules, but we can be a little bit more confident that staff is safe. Seems like is that. But if somebody is intoxicated on the beach and they're having an argument, is the security company handling that? Is it we're calling 911 and waiting for them to show up?
I think both. I think you're still calling the authorities, but at least they're there if something gets out of hand.
Okay.
Do whatever they do, and
Right.
Well, are we clear that security companies no longer, will interact with anyone? They just take a picture and walk away? I mean, I think that's based on just one situation.
It's based on how much money you put forth towards the company. So the more money you spend, the better service you're
Okay,
gonna
but,
get.
yeah, but let's get some factual information so that we have something to react to. I think that's what's most important. You may be able to have someone that will interact with guests and say, hey, I'm sorry, you need to put that cigarette out, or whatever the situation being. If they're given the proper information of what they can enforce or not enforce, and then as it escalates, then we have a plan of attack. Yeah.
right. And I think that's why, because of it's time sensitive, we need to allow Katie to make that decision
Okay.
for the best interest of the staff.
Okay,
If you don't feel comfortable with what they're offering, then you're okay to close the
Gotcha.
park, yeah.
okay.
That's what I'm getting at.
Sure, so that would be, for this weekend for Merrill during the event there, and then is it just Tuesday? Am I
Tuesday-
getting them through?
I wouldn't think so. I would
Okay.
just think if you think it's still the same situation, then you just continue to close the park because I mean, what else are you gonna do? The staff's safety is more, and the patrons are more,
Sure, I guess right now, I don't think it's safe, so yes, if we can have security there, that helps, but then on Tuesday, do I still have security at the park, or then nothing will have changed at
correct.
that point, so then is the park
I'm
just
just-
closed on Tuesday, and we're trying to keep the park open for the holiday weekend?
That's what I
Is
was
that-
getting,
okay.
holiday weekend. Because we've got pavilion rentals, like Judy said, and it's gonna be really busy. And I just think it's, even without the fees collected, it's just, it's bad to have the park closed, I guess, on a holiday weekend.
Agreed, yep.
It's a short-term fix for sure, but it's what we have, I guess.
Sure,
Evaluate from here on out, but at least this gives you some tools immediately to deal with the situation.
okay. The staff texts me all the time now, and someone's just texting me again, so that's just why I'm looking down at.
You didn't smile.
Right, it sounds like it's okay, sorry. Okay, I think I'm clear on what to do. Is there, I guess maybe if we could just talk a little bit more about the being open but without staff there, like how would I determine that, we just close, or if, we do on Tuesday, we keep it open, but I have somebody coming in at an early shift and we're, I guess, cleaning up, getting the park ready, because the other piece of this is the amount of goose poop that is out at this park is ridiculous. And then we do put that goose poop fence up every day and every night, and they're still picking up 5-gallon buckets, 3 and 5 fold. So it's just, it's a lot.
I think if you feel like it's better to keep it open or have that stuff done and then keep it open without staff and then rather than close it, if you think that's a better idea,
Sure.
I think we could leave that up to you as well. I know that's tough on the staff to not have the hours now because they're not working,
Sure.
but they're also safe, I guess.
Right.
Again, short term.
Right.
We still should be working on
Right.
trying to, I know it's a long process, but trying to hire someone else
Sure.
to be that ordinance person
Okay.
while all this is happening simultaneously.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. So do I need to say that so moved, I guess? You're not supposed to say that in Robert's rules, but
Sure.
direct Katie, okay, so I moved that we authorize Katie to talk to Supervisor Martin about possibility of hiring security for this weekend and then allowing her to close the park or have it open without staff as she deems necessary going forward.
Are there any objections? None voted, motion passed.
Thank you.
Please keep us posted. Okay, that brings us to the meeting. Motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Objections?